Kazuya Kagami narrates his first encounter with Kiriha. Earlier during the day, Kazuya dreams of him begging Kiriha not to leave him, waking up to find himself groping Chisato Chikaishi's melons in class. Chisato beats Kazuya as his friends Shiro Shiramin and Osamu Osanai watch. After being lectured by Chisato, Kazuya heads up to the school's roof to contemplate his dream and his mother's obi. After finishing, as Kazuya prepares to leave, he finds a wig on the floor and attempts to avoid it, but is grabbed by the wig. Meanwhile, Chisato wonders about Kazuya's whereabouts. Kazuya is saved from the wig by an unknown force, and Kazuya hears a voice in his head helping him. The wig tackles Kazuya off the roof of the building. Kazuya falls but is saved by Kiriha, creating a cushion and manifesting herself in human form. Kiriha gives Kazuya a familiar greeting, but Kazuya does not recall her. The Amasogi's host reveals itself and continues their attack on Kazuya. Kiriha saves Kazuya from the Amasogi and destroys it. As Kazuya tends to be the unconscious host, Kiriha explains the concept of Amasogi. Kazuya blushes at the thought of a girl liking him, but Kiriha tells him the host is a male, cross-dressing as a female. Kiriha disappears to the rooftops as a teacher comes by to check on the two. Kazuya returns home and greets his sister before going upstairs to his room. Kazuya thinks about what has happened and takes a nap. Kazuya awakes to find Kiriha sleeping with him under his sheets and screams. Kasumi rushes upstairs to check on Kazuya, who quickly rolls Kiriha up in his blanket and hides her behind his bed. Kasumi reaches Kazuya's room, and Kazuya insists nothing happened, prompting his sister to leave. Kiriha punishes Kazuya for tossing her around and introduces herself to Kazuya as his master. Kiriha has Kazuya go out to buy her food, and Kazuya makes 2 trips for forgetting to buy pudding. Kiriha stays in his room as Kazuya goes downstairs to eat dinner with his sister. Kiriha makes loud noises, attracting their attention, which Kazuya attempts to distract Kasumi from. After dinner, Kazuya enters the bath to find Kiriha bathing, and they bathe together. After bathing, the two share Kazuya's bed as they sleep. Kokyu observes the curse in the city and receives instruction from a voice on how to act on it. Kiriha attempts to wake Kazuya Kagami up to no avail until she begins to stomp on his no-no spot. Kazuya rushes to class only to be told he is late by his teacher. Chisato violently chastises Kazuya for being late as Shiro and Osamu watch. Kazuya blames Kiriha for being late to school. Earlier that morning, after being woken by Kiriha, Kazuya finds that he is running late and that Kiriha has destroyed his alarm clock. Kazuya rushed out to school, but Kiriha insisted on going with him. Kazuya tricks Kiriha into going into her obi form, believing Kazuya would carry her that way, but Kazuya leads her tied up in a box and goes to school by himself. While having lunch with Shiro and Osamu, Kazuya laughs to himself during lunch for being able to trick Kiriha. Shiro and Osamu talk about rumors of a ghost sighting, and Shiro fantasizes about using the opportunity to get close to a girl. Chisato smacks them all on the head as punishment for Shiro's thoughts, reminding them of their work. Kazuya realizes he has not completed his work and begs Osamu for help but is stopped by Chisato, who drags him to the library to oversee him personally. Kazuya works with Chisato in the library, and they reminisce about studying together as children. Chisato offers to go over to Kazuya's house to help him study, but Kazuya declines, not wanting Chisato to encounter Kiriha. Kazuya finishes his work and takes a book out while Chisato leaves. Chisato finds herself unable to open the library door to leave. As Kazuya takes out books, Kiriha appears, and Kazuya screams as she beats his face to a pulp. Chisato checks on Kazuya and informs him that she cannot open the door. The two find themselves locked in the library and unable to break out with brute force. Kiriha shows herself to the two, and Kazuya quickly drags her away to talk privately. After several more beatings, Kiriha explains Amasogi to Kazuya and introduces herself to Chisato, explaining the situation to her. Kiriha gives both of them Netsuke to detect Amasogi. The group searches for the Amasogi but finds that the Netsuke are responding to numerous books within the library. Kiriha attempts to force her way out with her spiral weave. The area transforms into a large hall of books, revealing the entire library as the Amasogi. Books attack Kiriha, and a large book golem appears and begins to chase them. Kiriha realizes that Chisato is the Amasogi's host and has Kazuya recount their previous actions in the library. Realizing Kazuya's rejection of Chisato's study offer to trigger the Amisogi, Kazuya accepts Chisato's offer, and the library returns to normal. Outside the library, Kokyu observes the entire event transpire. Chisato arrives at the house to study, opening his room to find him sleeping with Kiriha. Chisato hits Kazuya and reminds him that she came to help him study. Chisato gives pudding to Kiriha and apologizes for creating an Amisogi. Kiriha tells Chisato not to blame herself and explains the curse to them. Kiriha blames Kukuri for not managing the curse. Shiro Shiramin is stopped by Kokyu on the streets and asked about Kazuya Kagami. Shiro offers to bring Kokyu to Kazuya for a price. A flashback scene depicts Kukuri with Kiriha sealing Kazuya's memories at the Hakusen Shrine. Kiriha agrees to have Kazuya's memories sealed despite the risks it poses to herself. Kazuaki Kagami checks on his son before he heads out, telling Kazuya he will be home early for dinner. While walking to school, Kiriha comments on Kazuaki's doting nature. At school, Shiro greets Kazuya with a dropkick, blaming him for his earlier troubles. A flashback of the day before explains Shiro bringing Kokyu to a restaurant to eat and offering to pay for the food. Kokyu orders an abundance of food for herself and finishes it all as the employees and customers cheer her on. Kokyu leaves with a parting gift from the restaurant, while Shiro is forced to stay and pay the bill. In the present, Shiro tells Kazuya that he lost all his money and is now in debt to Osamu. Kazuya has no idea who the woman looking for him could be. Atop the school building, Kokyu listens to them and remembers her conversation with Kukuri from earlier. Kukuri berates Kokyu for losing track of her objective. Kokyu explains the food was much better than what she usually eats at the shrine, casually blaming the shrine's lack of resources and recognition. Kukuri tells Kokyu to hurry to bring Kazuya to her without making a commotion and not bringing Kiriha along. In the present, Kokyu's stomach growls. Shiro challenges Kazuya to arm wrestling for Kazuya's lunch prepared by his sister. Kukuri comments on arm wrestling being a pastime of hers. The other classmates scream as they find their lunches are gone. Kazuya confronts Kiriha about the missing lunches and is hit in the face. Chisato mentions the possibility of being an Amisogi, but Kazuya believes it to be a thief. Kokyu bursts through the classroom door with stolen lunches in hand and mouth, demanding Kazuya's whereabouts. Shiro recognizes Kokyu from earlier, but Kokyu does not remember him. Shiro demands that Kokyu pay him back or compensate him by allowing him to touch her basketball. Kokyu accepts the latter, but Chisato knocks Shiro down, only allowing him to touch Kokyu's melons briefly. Kokyu confronts Kazuya and tells him to follow her. Kiriha intervenes, and the two argue. The two settle things via arm wrestling to decide whether Kiriha can come. Atop the school roof, Kiriha and Kokyu face off in Suzura Temple-style arm wrestling, and Kiriha is victorious. A teacher arrives to see what they are doing, but Kiriha, Kazuya, Kokyu, and Chisato leave the rest of the students behind. The group walks up to the Hakusen Shrine, Kazuya remembering the path to be familiar despite having no memories of venturing there. At the shrine, the group meets with Kukuri. A flashback depicts Kanaka Kagami and Kiriha battling with a turtle, Amisogi. Kokyu introduces the group to Kukuri. Kiriha explains that she beat Kokyu in arm wrestling and won the right to come with them. Kukuri and Kiriha briefly argue about their current standings in their arm wrestling competition before being told by Kazuya to stop. Kiriha confronts Kukuri, inquired about the seal on Kazuya's memories weakening. Kiriha suggests that she reapply the seal immediately, but Kukuri refuses, offering an alternate solution. Kukuri tells Kazuya he will become the region's exorcist, but Kiriha rejects the idea. Kukuri tells Kazuya that he is responsible for recent occurrences of Amisogi. Kiriha tries to take Kazuya and escape, but a barrier locks them. Kokyu carries Chisato into the air, and Kukuri prepares to battle Kiriha and Kazuya. Kiriha tries to fly her and Kazuya away during the battle. Kiriha is knocked down, and Kukuri uses Minazuchi, engulfing them in a large mass of water. Kukuri uses Minazuchi on Kiriha and Kazuya, while Kokyu and Chisato Chikaishi watch from a safe distance. Kiriha protects herself and Kazuya from the attack, was as weakened and shrunk. Kukuri launches another attack, and Kiriha cannot protect both of them. Kazuya receives a dream of his mother giving him advice on what to do, telling him to protect Kiriha. Kazuya awakens to find Kiriha, giving him air through mouth to mouth. The two resurface, and Kazuya commands Kiriha to use her true name to fight. Kukuri launches various attacks as Kazuya finds it difficult to grasp Kiriha's abilities. Kukuri uses Suzuro Mizuchi, which Kazuya can counter using a watershed weave. Kazuya goes in to finish with a spiral weave, which manages to destroy Kukuri's ice barrier. After the barrier is destroyed, Kazuya finds Kiriha in the hands of Kukuri with an ice spear up to her neck. Kazuya complies with Kukuri's demands and agrees to become an exorcist. The battle concludes, and Kukuri's Akuju mask falls off, causing her to change into a childlike state. Kiriha mocks and bullies Kukuri in her new form. Kukuri finishes by explaining the battle was simply a ruse to get Kazuya to Kiriha and become an exorcist. Kiriha wildly swings Kukuri around in anger. Kazuya, Kiriha, and Chisato leave the shrine, with Chisato later parting ways as Kazuya carries Kiriha home. Kiriha has a flashback to just before they left the shrine about a private conversation with Kukuri about Kazuya. Kukuri and Kokuyu sit and converse in their ruined shrine. At home, Kazuya observes Kiriha's shrunken state. Kazuya checks if Kiriha is injured, and Kiriha begins to tease him. The two take baths, and Kiriha remembers a conversation with Kanaka as she passes out from overheating. Kazuya has Kiriha rest on his bed as he fans her. Kiriha asks for pudding as Kazuya notices the need to get more fitting clothes for Kiriha. Kazuya asks his sister for clothes from childhood, which Kasumi misinterprets as part of Kazuya's developing interest. Kazuya leaves before Kasumi can respond. Kazuya calls Chisato about clothes, but Chisato tells Kazuya she cannot get them to him immediately. Kazuya stares at the phone, thinking about who to contact. Kazuya meets up with Osamu Osane, who provides him with the needed clothes. Osamu misinterprets Kazuya's need for the clothes as a fetish but states he will inquire, but Kazuya denies it. Kazuya returns to his room with the clothes and pudding he bought along the way. Kiriha checks to clothes, and the two find that they are exciting. Kiriha teases Kazuya about wearing the clothes if he wants her, which Kazuya rejects. The next day at school, Osamu confronts Kazuya about the clothes, asking if he had fun as Kazuya attempts to clear up the misunderstanding. Kiriha tells Kazuya that they will begin his training. While training, Kiriha grows frustrated with Kazuya's physical ineptitude and lack of skill, failing to perform basic weaves. As they bathe, Kiriha explains the weaknesses and mortality of Sugumomo. Kukuri finds that she and Kokuyo lack the funds to repair their shrine. The carpentry Tsukumogeme cannot work without pay but leaves some cloth covering the holes. Kazuya fails to weave properly at Kazuya's home, prompting Kiriha to punish him and demonstrate the correct method. At the Hakuzen shrine, Kukuri fails to package a rose, prompting Kokuyo to demonstrate properly. At Kazuya's home, Kazuya calls Kiriha out for cheating at Jenga. Back at the Hakuzen shrine, Kukuri and Kokuyu struggle to keep their home together as it collapses in on them. The Jenga tower falls over at Kazuya's home, and Kiriha feels something good has happened. Kukuri and Kokuyu stand outside in the rain, lamenting their destroyed home, while Kokuyu decides on their next home. Kiriha and Kazuya train as Chisato. Kukuri and Kokuyu watch. Kukuri wonders why they are performing such basic training, to which Kiriha explains that Kazuya's previous victory and display of skill was merely a fluke. Kukuri panics, regretting her decision, and heads to their new home, seeing there is nothing they can do about it. The group follows Kukuri and Kokuyu to their new home to find them in a playground as Kiriha laughs. Kukuri reads the curse forecast and tells them there should be no curse-related problems. Nakajima snicker while drawing in a dark room. Kazuya meets with the student council president, Tadataka Tadada, who introduces himself as the owner of the previous hair Amasoji. Tadada informs them of a problem likely caused by an Amasoji. On the way to the location of the problem, they run into Osamu. They find the club room is missing, and Kiriha checks for the presence of an Amasoji using her Hazakura, which responds. At Kukuri's new shrine, Kokuyu tells Kukuri that their curse forecast is 2 months out of date. The group heads back to find themselves stopped by a wall. Nakajima introduces himself, demanding that Tadada officialize the tabletop RPG club, which Tadada refuses. Nakajima summons a minotaur using his sketchbook Amasoji, and the group runs away. The group finds themselves trapped by a wall and heads into the classroom, which leads to a dead end. Kiriha tells Kazuya they need to face the monster, and Kazuya realizes the monster is drawing, meaning it can be erased. Nakajima and the Minotaur enter the room, where the Minotaur is sprayed with water by Osamu and Tadada to no effect. Kazuya uses the distraction to use a fire extinguisher on the Minotaur, erasing its arm. The group retreats into the hallway and erases the wall that blocked them, only to find another wall behind it, and their fire extinguisher has run out. Nakajima corners them, having shoddily redrawn the Minotaur's arm. Kazuya uses Kiriha and makes a rush to a nearby fire extinguisher, grabbing it and erasing the monster. Nakajima is confronted, and Osamu is informed about the Amisogi. Kiriha gives Nakajima the sketchbook for him to destroy to avoid curse backlash. Nakajima destroys the book, but reveals he has a piece of paper hidden, summoning another Minotaur. Osamu reveals that he had switched their sketchbooks and is still the Amisogi. Osamu summons a flare dragon and destroys Nakajima's Minotaur. The fire from the dragon causes the fire alarm to go off. After changing clothes, Osamu explains that Nakajima used tracing for his drawing. Osamu calls Nakajima's use of the Amisogi a waste, drawing and summoning an adult version of Kiriha in a bikini to demonstrate its potential. The adult Kiriha begins sadistically stomping on Kazuya's lightsaber, and Nakajima destroys his Amisogi. Hiroshi Okado confesses his love for Chisato Chikaishi on the school rooftop as Kiriha and Kazuya secretly watch. Chisato rejects Hiroshi, stating she already likes someone, leaving Hiroshi upset. Kazuya is surprised Chisato likes someone, while Kiriha sighs at Kazuya's obliviousness. Chisato helps Kazuya study in his room as Kiriha plays video games. Kazuya confronts Chisato about who she likes, and Chisato refuses to tell. Kiriha looks through Chisato's bag for pudding but finds a doll instead as Chisato grows increasingly embarrassed. Kazuya asks what the doll is, and Chisato mellows down, telling them it is nothing. Hiroshi expresses his frustration over getting rejected as he plays computer games. While playing his video games manifests as an Amisogi. Kazuya arrives at school the next day to find all the students interacting as couples. Tatami Tadada runs into Kazuya and falls over, exposing her garments to him. Tatami flusteredly questions Kazuya on whether or not he saw her undergarments. A dialogue prompts with a timer manifest in front of the girl, and Kazuya hastily makes a choice. Tatami slaps Kazuya and leaves. Kazuya arrives in his classroom to find all his classmates interacting as couples with the same dialogue prompts. Shiro, a dialogue interaction with Misako Misago, greets Kazuya and tells him of the great opportunity they have received from the dialogue system. As Kazuya sits down for class, Kiriha concludes that a gal game Amisogi causes the dialogue system to run throughout the school. Kazuya heads out to search for the Amisogi but finds Chisato being romanced by Hiroshi. Kazuya greets Chisato, who responds distantly. Kazuya confronts Hiroshi about what he has done to Chisato, but Chisato slaps Kazuya. Chisato and Hiroshi then leave, Hiroshi proclaiming his superior skills at playing Pure Heart. Kazuya and Kiriha realize that Hiroshi is the host of the Amisogi and chase after him. Hiroshi calls upon his groupies to defend him from Kazuya. Kazuya meets with Osamu, explaining the situation and asking for advice. Osamu explains the workings of the Pure Heat dialogue system, telling Kazuya that his best chance to win Chisato back is to use the custom input dialogue option. Kazuya finds Chisato and enters custom dialogue input, asking her to help him study and increasing Chisato's affection for Kazuya. While studying in class, tells compliments Chisato's hands to no effect. Chisato, Kazuya, and Osamu have lunch together, Osamu complimenting Chisato on her stay. Kazuya compliments Chisato's lunch-making skills and abilities as a housewife, increasing her affection for Kazuya. Chisato asks Kazuya about Kiriha's whereabouts, though no dialogue window appears. Osamu realizes the situation to be a free input conversation event. Before Osamu can warn Kazuya about answering carelessly, Kazuya tells Chisato that she is napping in her gym clothes. Chisato's affection decreases and she gets angry. Osamu explains the situation and Kazuya attempts to answer carefully but fails. Osamu, Kazuya, and Kiriha meet and discuss the situation. Osamu explains the only choice left for Kazuya is to exploit an event bug, which results in him maximizing his points. Hiroshi meets with Chisato beneath the school's sacred tree and prepares to confess his love. Kazuya interrupts them, Hiroshi is already aware of the exploit but unconvinced he can pull it off. Kazuya brings out a pair of dolls, one of which is Chisato's from earlier, and asks her to play house with him. Chisato remembers that when she and Kazuya were younger, they would play house together, Chisato playing as the mother doll and Kazuya the father doll. Kazuya grew tired of playing as the other kids ridiculed him and refused to. Chisato gave Kazuya the father doll to keep so they could play again. Chisato accepts Kazuya's proposal. Kazuya wins over Chisato, and Hiroshi cries as he runs away. Chisato and Kazuya rest in the nurse's office while Osamu and Kiriha head off to search for Hiroshi and the Amasogi. Kazuya awakes to find Chisato kissing him while his limbs are bound to the bed. Hiroshi tells Osamu and Kiriha that the game is running on a PC in the computer lab. Osamu realizes the game's PC version is not for kids, and the three rush to stop the event. Osamu and Hiroshi head to the computer lab, forced to quit the game and destroy the Amasogi. Kiriha rushes to the nurse's office. The next day at school, Kazuya and Chisato sit awkwardly beside each other. Osamu asks Kiriha if they had fun, to which Kiriha tells Osamu that he could not get the truth out of Kazuya. In the South Kinyoka Park, Kiriha bullies Kukuri for giving them incorrect information on the curse forecast, and Kazuya tries to calm her down. Kokyu arrives to inform Kukuri that she has to leave for work, explaining to Kazuya that she has taken up several part-time jobs to pay for their expenses. Kokyu leaves and Kukuri pushes Kiriha off of her. Kukuri dons her Akujo mask and uses Minazuchi to no effect. Kiriha continues grappling with Kukuri. Kazuya tells Kiriha to stop, or else she will not get pudding. Kiriha releases Kukuri, and Kazuya goes off to buy pudding. Kiriha engages in a chat with Kukuri after Kazuya has left. Kiriha inquires about Kukuri's depleted strength. Kukuri tells Kiriha that she cannot tell her yet, and Kiriha assumes it involves her reasoning for making Kazuya an exorcist. Kiriha threatens Kukuri into telling her, which Kukuri indulges in but tells her to wait until after completing their dam made of sand. Kids warn the two to watch as a soccer ball slams into the dam, covering them both in mud. The two kids mock the pair for being covered in mud. Kiriha chases after the two kids as Kukuri laments her dam. Kazuya returns, confused by the situation. At the Kagami household, Kukuri and Kiriha wash each other because Kukuri is too embarrassed to have Kazuya wash them, and Kiriha usually does. Kokuru notices Kiriha's basketball has gotten larger, and Kiriha realizes she has gotten taller as well, a sign of her power returning due to Kazuya. In the bathtub, Kiriha continues their conversation at the playground, but Kukuri insists that she cannot tell her. Kiriha suggests they play shiratori and call washboard, referring to Kukuri's dough. The two play shiratori, insulting each other before they are taken out of the bath, having overheated, and Kazuya fans them to cool them down. Kukuru thanks Kazuya and bids farewell before returning to the park. Kazuya thanks his sister for dinner, and Kasumi notes that he has a lot of leftovers. Kazuya believes he needs to save some food for Kiriha. Kasumi suspects that Kazuya has been keeping a stray pet, reminding them of their father's allergies, but Kazuya denies it. Kiriha tells Kazuya he has had enough of a dog already. Kazuya brushes off Kiriha's insult before dropping his tray upon realizing that Kiriha is eating with the rest of his family. Kasumi and Kiriha argue about Kiriha insulting Kazuya. Kazuya inquires how she is already acquainted with his family. Kiriha explains that she has been speaking with them since the day she materialized, having already been acquainted with them when owned by his mother. Kazuya asks his father if he already knew Kiriha, which he affirms, having met long ago. Kazueki remembers how, in the past, Kiriha would thwart his various advances on Kanaka, mentioning Kiriha being akin to an in-law. Kiriha orders Kazuaki to get her some pudding, which he obediently complies with. Kiriha enjoys her pudding, and Kazuya realizes he forgot to give Kukuri her share. The two walk to the park to deliver the pudding to Kukuri and Kokuyo, and then they arrive at the park to find the structure where Kukuri had established her shrine to be demolished and boarded off. Kukuri runs crying towards Kiriha, lamenting her shrine. Kokuyo informs them that the structure was deemed dangerous due to an injured kid. Kiriha recalls it being one of the kids she chased earlier. Kukuri cries about having nowhere to sleep, but Kiriha tells her she will make arrangements. Back at the Kagami house, Kasumi reiterates to Kazuya that they cannot keep pets, but Kazuya informs her that they are people as he welcomes Kokuyo and Kukuri into their home. Kazuya wakes up in his bed, Kiriha's legs over his face as she sleeps atop him. Kazuya tiredly walks into the washroom, getting his sister and running face first into Kokuyu's Jigglypuff. Kokuyu asks Kazuya if he is satisfied, and Kazuya backs away, apologizing. Kokuyu offers to let him rub her bread more as a reward, and Kukuri calls Kazuya out for being a pervert. Kazuya briefly questions why they are both in his house before remembering what happened the night before. Kazuya negotiated with his father the night before to let the two stay. Kazuaki told them about the difficulties of caring for two more residents, while Kasumi expressed her concern about having Kokuyu in the same house as Kazuya. Kiriha asked Kazuaki if he was sure they could not let them stay, which he affirmed. Kiriha begins to recite a love poem, and Kazuaki punches Kiriha's speech bubble, agreeing to let the two of them stay. Kukuri sets up their room as the new Hakuzen shrine, even placing an offering box on their table. Kiriha expresses her gratitude for being allowed to stay as she enjoys some mizuyokan. Kiriha tells her to finish quickly as they have engagements. Kukuri protests as Kiriha tries to drag her to borrow money for curse forecasts. Kiriha, Kukuri, and Kazuya arrive at the Kanara shrine, and Kiriha has Kukuri called Tagiri Kanayama. The three are sucked into the shrine, where Tagiri greets them. Tagiri correctly assumes that Kukuri has returned to borrow money, and Kukuri apologizes for not repaying her previous debts. Tagiri brings out a deck of golden cards, laying it out for them to play concentration. Tagiri explains the rule, and Kukuri whispers to Kiriha a plan. They roll dice to decide the turn order, resulting in Kiriha going first and Tagiri last. Kiriha can match two 5,000 yen cards before failing a turn. Kazuya next picks up a bread smooching card and a peach fondling card. Kiriha shakes Kukuri, demanding an explanation. Kukuri explains that Tagiri created the game to sate her desire for little girls. Tagiri thanks Kukuri for brining Kiriha to her. Kiriha attempts to leave, but Kukuri stops her. Kiriha tells Kukuru that she should have warned them, to which Kukuri explains keeping it secret is part of the deal. Kukuri insists they simply have to get all the cards to avoid punishment. Kukuri goes next, picking up an ear nibble and armpit sniff card. Tagiri plays her turn, picking up two licking and kissing cards. Tagiri ponders who to choose for her prize as Kiriha and Kukuri hold each other in fear. Tagiri chooses Kukuru and begins kissing her as Kiriha embraces Kazuya in fear. The game continues as Tagiri continually succeeds at matching pairs. Kiriha ends up wearing a revealing catsuit and Kukuri a bunny suit. It is Tagiri's turn as only one card has left to be revealed, leaving it easy for Tagiri to take the rest of the cards. Tagiri picks the last card, full body massage, and Kiriha and Kukuri agree to enact their plan. Kiriha asks Kukuri to go to the washroom, asking Tagiri to go with her. Tagiri rushes with Kiriha to the washroom. While Tagiri is gone, Kukuri touches the cards. The two return as Kiriha confirms with Kukuri that she can accomplish the task. Tagiri says the cards have been moved, which Kukuri denies. Tagiri tells them the fingerprints on the cards have suddenly changed, but the two insist they have not moved any cards. Tagiri states that they will serve her for a full night if she is correct. Tagiri picks up the card she believes to be a full body massage but finds it is nipple rubbing. Kiriha next picks up the full body massage cards that have not moved. Tagiri realizes they only made it appear like they were swapped by wiping off their fingerprints and placing them on another card. Kiriha and Kukuri celebrate their victory, which is cut short by Tagiri informing them they are not allowed to touch cards when not on their turn. As a penalty, the remaining cards go to her. Kiriha and Kukuri shiver in fear as Tagiri prepares to have her way with them. Kazuya and his group obtained 175,000 yen at the expense of Kukuri, and Kiriha is left in baby clothes. Tagiri greets them farewell, welcoming them to come again, which they refuse. Kiriha watches TV. While lying on the table eating rice crackers, Kazuaki asks to watch baseball, to which Kiriha responds with a menacing look. Kazuaki is forced to listen to the baseball game on his radio. Kasumi turns off the TV and crosses her arms at Kiriha. Kiriha tries to get the remote from Kasumi but fails. Kasumi directs Kiriha to Kukuri, who is washing dishes. Kasumi appreciates Kukuri's hard work and suggests Kiriha does the same. Kiriha refuses but is convinced when Kasumi threatens Kiriha by denying her pudding. Kasumi has Kiriha shake potatoes. Kasumi remembers they are out of pork cutlet sauce and calls Kazuya to buy some. Kukuri and Kiriha finish preparing the cabbages and potatoes. Kiriha and Kukuri mess around with each other as they and Kazuya walk to the grocery store. At the store, Kiriha and Kukuri are excited by the large amount of snacks and are reined in by Kazuya, who tells them they are only getting what is on their shopping list. Kukuri and Kazuya find the listed items together. Kukuri sees a couple with a child and imagines herself in a relationship with Kazuya. Kazuya's basket is suddenly filled with pudding as Kiriha whistles. Kiriha cries as Kazuya and Kukuri return the pudding to its stand. Kiriha kneels in front of the pudding stand and begins to sing a pudding song, drawing the attention of a crowd. Kiriha prepares to enter the second verse before Kazuya gives in and takes 1 cup of pudding. To Kiriha's delight, Kukuri spots some mizuyoken she wants, but Kiriha and Kazuya are already walking away. Kukuri contemplates crying and singing like Kiriha did, but decides against it. They find a huge line leading to the Kokyu register at the checkout. Kokyu thanks them for shopping as Shiro and the other customers gawk at her cute Jigglypuff. Kazuaki dusts off their buttsudan while listening to baseball. Kiriha, Kazuya, Kukuri, and Kokyu walk home together as Kiriha sings. Upon returning home, they eat dinner together. Upon finishing dinner, Kiriha gets excited to eat some pudding. Kukuri cleans the table as Kazuya brings her some mizuyoken, which he reveals to have been on the shopping list. Kiriha and Kukuri happily eat their desserts together. Kazuya sits in the bath as Kazumi, Kukuri, Chisato, Kiriha, and Kokyu surround him as he recalls what led to the current situation. Earlier at school that day, Kazuya, Chisto, and Osamu are shocked to find Shiro with a group of girls fawning over him. Shiro greets them as their classmates question how he became popular despite being notoriously unpopular. Chisato chastises Shiro for being inappropriate, causing his groupies to insult her. Osamu determines Shiro's increase in popularity to be unnatural. Kiriha agrees, coming outside Kazuya's backpack and stating it to be an Amasagi's doing. Kazuya berates Kiriha for manifesting where his classmates might see her, prompting Kiriha to squeeze his eggplant and stating no one will notice her given the situation. Kiriha recalls the curse forecast given earlier and tells Kazuya to perform his job as an exorcist. Shiro plays his groupies as Kazuya confronts him about using an Amasogi. Shiro panics and denies Kazuya's claim as their male classmates overhear Kazuya's mention of a tool to make themselves popular. Their classmates are overcome with the desire to acquire Shiro's perfume and charge toward him. Kazuya uses Kiriha to knock his classmates away. The classmate gets back up, and Kiriha explains that their feelings resonating with the Amasogi also affect them. Kazuya uses Kiriha to grab Shiro as he, Chisato, and Osamu retreat. The group escapes to another classroom to close themselves in. Their classmate begins to break through the windows to get to them, forcing Kazuya to fend them off. Atop the school rooftop, Kazuya has Shiro explain the situation. Shiro explains the previous day he asked Misako Masago out but was rejected. After reading about it in a magazine, Shiro was enraged that his kolan failed. Just as Shiro was about to leave the bottle, it began whispering at him to use it again. Kiriha warns Chisato about getting closer to avoid affecting them. Kazuya explains that Shiro needs to destroy it himself. Before destroying it, Shiro remembers the fun he had with it. Shiro throws the bottle to the ground but bounces off the floor. The bottle leaks with its contents falling over Kazuya. Kazuya finds himself running home from a horde of females of various ages. Kasumi welcomes Kazuya home, startling him. Kazuya goes to take a bath. As he is bathing, Kazumi enters the bath with him. Kokyu and Kukuri join them and caress Kazuya. Kiriha and Chisato arrive to join in. Kazuya cries about it happening 3 times in front of everyone. The girls discuss who will first take his Virginia flag, playing rock, paper, scissors to decide. Kazuya decides to break the Amasagi himself. The next day, Shiro's curse backlash results in him emanating a foul stench, prompting everyone to avoid him as much as possible. In the past, Sakumi Muratsuki witnessed a depressing event atop the school roof, leaving a pair of shoes and a letter behind. At the Hakuzen Shrine, Kukuri trains with Kazuya and Kiriha, and Kukuri ultimately betests him. Kiriha beats Kazuya for failing and scolds him, pushing him to do more training exercises. At school, Osamu finds Kazuya exhausted at his desk. Kazuya complains about Kiriha overworking him. and Chisato tells him not to sleep in class. The three of them are called to the student council office and they suspect something is wrong. The three head to the office. Tadataka calls them in when a loud crash is heard from outside. The three enter to find Tadataka having tripped on the floor and his wig falling off, exposing his bald head. Tadataka gets back up and apologizes as he nonchalantly places his wig back on and welcomes them to sit. Kazuya inquires about his baldness, which Kiriha explains was the cursed backlash from destroying the wig Amasogi. Chisato ponders if it would have happened to her, and Kiriha explains that cursed backlash differs depending on the person and Amasogi. Tadataka moves the conversation onto the subject at hand. Tadataka explains when alone, students from classes 1 to 5 see Aiko Nago, who died 2 years ago. Tadataka tells them to investigate the matter, Kiriha explaining that ghosts do not exist to her knowledge and that it is likely an Amasogi. The group questions various students about Aiko and learns the circumstances of her self-destroy intentions, and that a student from the newspaper club is also investigating it. The group reconvenes outside to share information. Tadataka suggests they interview Aiko's fellow members, Yuichi Nishina and Nanako Nanakai of the newspaper club. They overhear Nanako pleading with Yu Osakabe for information, who refuses as she enters a classroom. The group questions her, and Nanako expresses her excitement about a real ghost story in their school. A scream is heard as Yu stumbles backward from the classroom in fear. A figure appearing to be Aiko emerges from the classroom, asking for the letter. Kiriha orders Kazuya to capture it, but it can counter his attack. The Amasogi escapes, and Kiriha beats Kazuya for failing as Nanako expresses her excitement about discovering Kiriha and Kazuya's abilities. The group and Nanako bring Yu to the nurse's office to have her rest and interview her. Kiriha explains that Amasogi, being a kamioni, is a huge threat and requires exorcising immediately. They have Yu explain what happened to Aiko. Yu explains that shortly after entering the school, she and a group of girls formed the Yuichi Nishina fan club, which included Aiko. Yuichi began to show interest in Aiko, which caused conflict within the group. Yu left the group and believed that Muratsuki and the remaining members bullied Aiko. Muratsuki was the first to find Aiko's body. The group reconvenes at the office to record their information. A student arrives with information about Aiko for Tadataka, it being that Aiko's sister enrolled at the school has changed her surname. The group rushes outside, Kazuya using obi wheels to speed away. Out on the streets, Sakumi is assaulted by the Amasogi. Kazuya rushes to her rescue and calls out Nanako using her original name, Nanako Nago. Nanako reveals herself and explains that she wants to know why her sister committed such a thing. When the lock of hair from Aiko Nanako manifested, Nanako thought to use it to discover the truth. Kiriha points out that her explanation does not align with the kamioni, which are born from the feelings of the deceased. Kazuya asks about the letter, which Nanako explains as the only thing the Amasogi has ever said on its own. Nanako questions Muratsuki about the letter. Muratsuki explains that Iko distanced herself from Yuichi to avoid betraying their group. Muratsuki confesses they bullied her to get her to leave the group. The day Iko died, she expressed her rage at her bullies and acted differently. Muratsuki saw Aiko head to the roof, where she found her shoes and a note. Muratsuki hid the note in case Aiko had blamed them for her doing such a thing, being too scared to open or discard it. Kazuya has Muratsuki bring them the letter. Nanako reads the note from her sister detailing the events of growth forming on her chest, which helped her express her inner feelings. The growth began to tell her they needed to kill Nanako, prompting Aiko to commit self-destruction to prevent it from taking over. Nanako begins to cry and blames herself for her sister's death, stating she should have died instead. Kiriha realizes that the growth had manipulated Nanako to make her feel like she had died, to become a complete kamioni. The Amasogi attack prompted Kazuya and Kiriha to defend themselves. Kazuya is knocked away as Kiriha explains the growth was recreated when Nanako's Amasogi formed. Kiriha orders Kazuya to run, but Kazuya insists it is his responsibility to solve it. Kazuya attacks with a hammer weave to no avail. The two can fend off an attack. Kiriha states they have no choice but to destroy it themselves. Kiriha relays orders for Kazuya's attacks, and Kazuya destroys the Amasogi with a spiral weave. Nanako cries over her sister, but Kiriha says that her sister was able to suppress her negative feelings to protect her. Kiriha tells Nanako that Aiko has conquered her feelings and that Nanako should not wish for her death and let her sister go in vain, which Nanako accepts. Kiriha turns to Kazuya and embarrassingly compliments him before chastising him for disobeying her. Osamu, Tadataka, and Chisato arrive as Kiriha beats Kazuya down. Atop the trees, Suno, Sumiraji, and Kotetsu watch the events transpire. Anoka uses her flames of heaven on Suno, Sumiraji, and Kotetsu to see them unharmed. Anoka accepts Suno as an exorcist, and the pair bid farewell. Anoka reaffirms Suno is sure about working in Kamioka instead of Kamiya and parting ways. At the student council office, Tadataka reviews the details of Nanako's amasogi with Osamu, Chisato, Kiriha, and Kazuya. Chisato and Kazuya state their relief of no curse backlash occurring, while Kiriha remains silent. Nanako enters the room, writing on a small whiteboard, and tells them she has lost her voice. The group is surprised by the curse backlash, but Kiriha tells them it does not always occur immediately. Kazuya apologizes to Nanako, but Nanako tells Kazuya it is her responsibility, which Kiriha agrees. Kiriha leaves, and Nanako assures Kazuya that Kiriha is correct. Kazuya prepares to go home, telling Kiriha she was too harsh on Nanako, but Kiriha tells him to be silent. Kazuya is called out by Suno, who punches him in the face. Suno continues attacking Kazuya, and Kiriha defends him. Suno can grab Kiriha away and punch Kazuya again, calling him a pathetic excuse for an exorcist. Kiriha attacks with an obi punch from behind but is intercepted by Kotetsu, who cuts her obi. Suno chastises Kotetsu for interfering and calls him back into his weapon form. Kiriha questions if Suno was possessed by Hertsukumogami, which Suno denies. Suno introduces herself and states her reason for attacking Kazuya, telling him he is not fit to be Kanaka's replacement. Kazuya is confused, and his head hurts when he tries to remember his mother. Kiriha remembers Suno, and the two leave, telling Kiriha and Kazuya to follow them to the land god. At Kazuya's house, Hukuri makes a grand entrance for the four of them, and Kiriha grapples her for it. Suno and Kotetsu are shocked by how Kita treats a god. Previously, Suno and Kotetsu had witnessed Kazuya's fight with the Kamioni, believing Kazuya to be unfit to wield Kanaka's weapon. The two went to Kukuri, who told them that Kanaka had passed away. Suno requested to test Kazuya's strength as an exorcist. Kukuri accepted and told them how much Kazuya had progressed. Suno thanks Kukuri for accepting her request, though Kiriha is angered and threatens her. Suno states that Kazuya is unfit to be the region's exorcist and challenges him to a duel to decide Kamioka's exorcist. In the past, the funeral of Su Sumiraji is being held. Anoka denies Suno's request for Tsukumogami to avenge her brothers. Anoka berates Suno for trying to avenge Su despite not being an exorcist and defeating an enemy, which Su himself could not. Anoka reminds Suno that Su became an exorcist so she could live peacefully, but Suno was already gone. Kotetsu cries over a photo of his deceased owner, blaming himself for being unable to defend Su. Suno punches Kotetsu in the face and announces that she will use him. Suno carries Kotetsu, running to find the aberration that killed her brother. Suno blames Kotetsu for being too weak to defend Shu but states she will use him regardless. Kotetsu senses that the aberration may have escaped to Kamioka. The two find Kanaka easily disposing of Su's killer, while Kiriha complains about being drenched in blood. Suno attacks Kanaka for taking away her chance at revenge, but is knocked unconscious. Suno awakes to Kanaka, greeting her. Kanaka tells Kiriha to apologize, but she refuses. Suno tells Kanaka about what happened, and Kiriha is unimpressed while Kanaka is brought to tears. Suno announces since she killed her brother's killer, Kanaka is now the target of her vendetta. Kiriha calls Suno out for not making sense, but Kanaka accepts being her nemesis and the two leave. After Suno dueled Kanaka many times to no success, they eventually enrolled at the Suzura Temple to train, only to find Kanaka gone once her training was complete. Suno tells Kazuya that he is not fit to be Kanaka's replacement. Suno demands Kazuya accept her challenge, which Kiriha does, but Kazuya remains silent. The next day, Kiriha wakes Kazuya up to train, but Kazuya is huddled in his blanket and refuses to leave. Kiriha kicks Kazuya to no response. Kazuya tells Kiriha that he blames himself for what happened to Tadataka and Nanako due to his attracting curse. Kazuya refuses to leave, allowing Sunao to take his place as the region's exorcist. Kiriha charges into the blanket with Kazuya, removing her clothes and then Kazuya's. Kiriha hugs Kazuya from behind to make him feel at ease. Kiriha tells Kazuya that he simply runs away, but Kazuya denies it, stating people suffer because of him. Kazuya states that Kiriha must also be annoyed with him, but Kiriha clenches his zone and starts to rebuke him, assuring Kazuya that she will be with him always. Kiriha tells Kazuya that people need others to live, including him. Kiriha confesses that she would be lonely with him, and Kazuya accepts his role as an exorcist. Kiriha begins to glow and has a sudden growth spurt. Kazuya questions how Kiriha has suddenly grown, but Kiriha states he has grown. Kiriha brings up Sunao, telling the two of them about her abilities the previous day. Kazuya tells Kiriha he is not going to give up. Kiriha removes the blanket, sitting on top of Kazuya, and tells him she will reward him if he wins. Shocked by the situation, Kukuri and Kasumi walk in, dragging Kiriha away and arguing with her. Kiriha and Kazuya train under a bridge as Kokuyo, Kukuri, and Chisato Chikaishi watch. Kiriha reviews Kazuya on the range of her and Sunao's attacks and her disadvantage against a sword, Tsukumogami, but states they have a plan. Sunao trains with Hanoka. Sunao thanks Hanoka for sparring with her and tells her she believes she has no chance of losing. Kotetsu asks to speak, but Sunao tells him she is busy talking with Hanoka. Hanoka allows Kotetsu to speak, who mentions that Kazuya must have passed Kukuri's qualification test at the very least. Sunao yells at Kotetsu for believing herself too arrogant and states that Kazuya's obi is good at defense and can easily cut through it with Kotetsu. Sunao tells Kotetsu that she does not need the opinions of a tool. Kiriha and Kazuya bathe together and converse. Previously, when the duel was arranged, Kukuri presented them with the water dolls they would use to redirect any damage from them to the dolls. Kiriha mentions that only the dolls protect him and Sunao, and that Tsukumogami can still be damaged. Kiriha explains that she can create duplicates of her obi, but regenerating it will take time if the real one is damaged. Kiriha tells Kazuya not to hesitate if he needs to use her real body. As Kazuya dries Kiriha's hair, Kazuya tells her that she will protect her so that she does not get damaged. Kiriha gets flustered, yells at Kazuya, and clenches his bum. While going to sleep, Kiriha offers to fondle Kazuya as he sleeps, while Kazuya responds embarrassed. Kazuya has a dream in which his Kanaka laughs at him. Kazuya tells her he does not understand why Kiriha got mad at him. Kanaka calls Kazuya dense, telling him that Kiriha is used to protect others instead of being protected. Kanaka mentions the lewd things he has done with Kiriha, using a remote to bring up various events of the two of them together, along with Kazuya with other girls. Kiriha, Kukuri, Chisato, Kokuyo, and Kasumi appear bare around Kazuya, and Kanaka teases him about being perverted. Kazuya tells Kanaka to stop creating illusion, but she reminds him that it is his dream. Kazuya tries to get rid of them, but instead replaces them with macho men before getting rid of them. Kanaka congratulates Kazuya for his self-control, but tells him that Kiriha would not be mad if he experimented with her a bit. Kazuya states he likes the way things are and does not want things to change. The sun begins to rise, the two bid farewell. Kazuya tries to connect the previous exorcist and his mom being the same person, but Kanaka tells him that his memory is still sealed off and he will not be able to make the connection. Kazuya awakes and checks his pants. At the Hakuzen shrine, Kazuya and Sunao connect themselves to Kukuri's water dolls. Kukuri goes over the win conditions. Sunao thinks about Kazuya being unworthy of being Kanaka's successor, while Kazuya thinks about his responsibility for attracting the curse and how Sunao treats Kotetsu as a tool. The duel begins with Kazuya showing off a new weave technique, the doll weave. Sunao destroys it, leaving Kazuya the opportunity to grab her blade. Sunao throws Kazuya away, and Kazuya prepares another doll weave. Sunao hit it with an air slash, but he countered with a jab from the doll, damaging her. Hanoka creates a miniature avatar of herself on top of Kukuri to watch the fight, and the two discuss the battle. Hanoka is impressed by Kazuya's skill despite hearing his lack of skill from Sunao. Sunao and Kazuya continue to fight, reanalyzing their situations. Kazuya weaves a tangle ball, which Kotetsu tells Sunao to retreat from, but she refuses. Kazuya weaves it into a hammer weave and knocks Sunao away. Anoka is surprised at how one-sided the fight is and believes Sunao is too overconfident as Sunao expresses cockiness. Kazuya creates a tangle ball into a spiral weave, which Sunao blocks using Kotetsu's hilt. Sunao launches an air slash, which Kazuya block, and the two continue fighting as Kukuri smugly tell Hanoka that her exorcist is winning. Sunao launches an air slash. Kazuya blocks the attack and counter, but this is his second consecutive air slash. Kazuya tries to retreat, but Sunao's attack reaches out of its expected range. Kazuya blocks it, and he continues retreating into the shrubbery. Kazuya launches a rock at Sunao with a crossbow weave from the bushes. Sunao can block the attack and destroy his weave, forcing Kazuya to retreat. Anoka tells Kukuri, her exorcist, to be winning now and explains how Sunao can manipulate her spiritual power to vary the range, speed, and power of her attacks. Sunao damages the original Kiriha, and Kazuya loses a duplicate. Sunao attacks, knocking them down, and goes in for a final strike, but is blocked by Kazuya's hand weave, which forms the watershed. Sunao presses her advantage against Kazuya, but Kazuya can defend himself with watershed weave. Kazuya counterattacks, knocking Sunao away and damaging her. Kazuya continues his attacks as Sunao retreats while attacking. Kotetsu warns Sunao about conserving her energy, but Sunao ignores him. The battle has reached a standstill as the combatants plan their next move. Anoka states the battle to be over, with Kazuya being able to recover the more they stall. Kukuri questions what secret technique Sunao used to pass her test, but Hanoka states what she used is only viable at close range. Anoka explains that Sunao will not be close to the distance between the two, but Kukuri thinks otherwise. Kazuya tells Kiriha he is not willing to play it safe to ensure victory, instead wanting to beat Sunao at her full strength to prove that Sugumomo are more than just tools. Kiriha agrees, and Kazuya charges at Sunao. Sunao prepares to face him as Hanoka monologues internally about Kotetsu's ability to build up spiritual energy within himself for Sunao to use her secret technique, Hibakiri. Kukuri monologues internally about possession and its variation and ascension. Kazuya activates ascension as Sunao unleashes her secret technique. Kazuya uses muscle-enhancing weave and parries Sunao's attacks. The two clash as Hanoka expresses her surprise at Kazuya using ascension. Kukuri believes them to be even, but Hanoka states otherwise. Kazuya catches Kotetsu, causing his handle to break. Now defenseless, Kazuya finishes Sunao off with a coiling snake. Sunao's water doll shatters, and Kukuri announces Kazuya as the victor. Exhausted, Kazuya exits Ascension, and Kiriha manifests human form, sapping Kazuya on the back. Kukuri congratulates Kazuya as Sunao worriedly picks up Kotetsu's blade. Hanoka explains how Kotetsu was damaged, though the blade was intact, and tells Sunao to be grateful as Kazuya had the opportunity to destroy Kotetsu. Sunao accepts and bows her head to the Kamioka residence as she and Hanoka leave. Kazuya is surprised as he believes Sunao thought of Tsukumogami as nothing but tools. Kiriha states no one who truly believes that could be so powerful. Kukuri congratulates the two as she and Kiriha bicker, and Kazuya collapses. In Kazuya's room, Kazuya rests as Kukuri and Kiriha discuss the side effects of Ascension. They mention that Kiriha and Kazuya would have been defenseless if Ascension had run out before the fight was over. Kiriha mentioned how they barely tested it in training. Kasumi calls the group to dinner. At dinner, Kukuri happily feeds Kazuya, who cannot move his lower body. Kasumi questions what happened, but Kiriha assures her it is temporary. Kasumi fantasizes that Kihira and Kukuri dominated Kazuya to the point that he cannot move and requires her love to heal. Kiriha comments on Kukuri enjoying feeding Kazuya, causing her to get flustered. Kiriha asks Kukuri to help with more than just feeding. Kukuri is flustered upon discovering Kiriha meant to help Kazuya bathe. Kazuya states he can skip a day of bathing, but Kiriha refuses. Kukuri is too embarrassed, so Kiriha blindfolds Kazuya as they wash them. Kazuya tells Kukuri she does not have to wash him if he does not want to, but Kukuri insists. Kiriha turns Kazuya around for Kukuri to wash his front. Kiriha tells Kukuri to wash Kazuya's lightsaber, and Kukuri gets flustered. Kukuri thinks about Kazuya's predicament because she makes him an exorcist and takes the courage to do it. Kazuya cries as the two see his construction. Kokuri sleeps as Kiriha comments on how she was supposed to be taking care of Kazuya. Kiriha turns to Kazuya and comments on the reward she promised him earlier. Kiriha strips Kazuya with his underpants, landing on Kokuri's head. The next morning, Kokuri uncovers the sheets to find Kazuya and Kiriha sleeping together. Kazuya wakes, and Kokuri screams, waking Kiriha. Kiriha binds Kokuri for screaming early in the morning. Kazuya realizes their energy has returned. Kokuri questions what they did, but Kazuya does not remember, passing out early on. Kasumi rushes upstairs to Kazuya's room and yells at Kiriha. Kazuya finds Kiriha to head off to school, but Kiriha tells Kazuya to go without her. Kazuya leaves, and Kiriha discusses the preparation they made with Kokuri and Kokuyo. At the Sumeragi estate, Suneo's mother chastises her for her actions. Suzuri tells her that she cannot inherit the dojo after losing, with the only options being to kill the one who defeated her, which is unlikely, or to marry him. While looking over the town, Kokuyo eats baguettes as she telepathically speaks to Kokuri about borrowing more money from Tagiri, but Kokuri refuses. Tori looks through a photo album of Kokuri in skimpy clothing as she ponders what she will have Kokuri wear next. Honoka fans herself while complaining about the heat. At Kamioka East Middle School, Nanako confronts Nakajima about his supernatural problems, but Nakajima tries to deny her. Kazuya passes by Tatami, yelling at Hiroshi while walking to class. Tadataka smiles in his office while looking at a clipboard. Kazuya enters his class to see his friends Chisato, Osamu, and Shiro. Kazuya is told about a transfer student and questions who it is. Shiro gets excited at the prospect of a girl with large hooters transferring to their class. Isuzu enters the class to welcome the new transfer student. The transfer student reveals herself as Kiriha, introducing herself as Kiriha Obina. The class cheers, while Kazuya is surprised but happy. Kazuya asks why she decided to transfer, to which Kiriha tells him that she cannot leave her servant alone. Shiro questions their relationship, and Kiriha tells him they are intimately familiar. Kazuya Kagami has unclear dreams of his past and wakes up to find Kiriha, Kokuri, and Kokuyo all lying in his bed on top of him. Kazuya pushes them off and chastises them. As Kiriha tries to return to sleep with Kazuya, Kasumi Kagami barges into their room and begins yelling at Kiriha for sleeping with Kazuya. Before Kasumi can launch a pan of fried eggs at Kiriha, Kazuya stops her and Kasumi warns him he will be late for school. Kazuya quickly gets dressed and reminds Kiriha what they must do at school. Kazuya's friends speak to him at school while his classmates ask Kiriha various questions. Kiriha eventually reveals she lives with Kazuya, and they frequently bathe and sleep together, prompting Shiro Shiramine to start a mock trial in class to judge Kazuya for his crimes. Kazuya is found guilty and punished via a turtle shell bondage pendulum. After class, Kazuya speaks with Shiro, Chisato Chikaishi, and Osamu Osanai in a private room where Kiriha explains herself as a Tsukumogami. There, Kazuya tells them he wishes to form a club to deal with the various paranormal activities around the school. They explain the existence of the aberration's curse and that Kazuya himself is a tabooed child. Kazuya's friends agree to join and form the club. Tadataka Tadata and Nanako Nanakai also arrive to pledge their support, revealing that they have slowly been recovering from their curse backlash. The group holds their first meeting and begins discussing if anyone is aware of anything of note that has happened recently. Chisato, Nanako, and Tadataka reveal that underwear has been missing after swimming classes. At night, as Chisato sleeps in her room, she dreams of Kazuya while Azami and Mimane Miyu sneak into her room. Mimane rummages through Chisato's wardrobe and confirms what they were looking for has disappeared as planned. The next day at school, Shiro leers as girls in their swimsuits during swim class. Chisato arrives, and Kazuya notes that she is not wearing her glasses. Chisato returns to the locker room to get them to find their clothes scattered everywhere and catches a glimpse of a mysterious creature that escapes through the vents. Kazuya meets with his club to discuss Chisato's findings, where Kiriha confirms it was likely an Amasogi. Shiro states they need bait to catch it, demanding Chisato's and Nanako's garments, which Chisato hits him for. Tadataka offers his underwear, but Shiro rejects it. Kiriha agrees with Shiro's plan, and they use her underwear as bait, placing it in a box trap. They catch the culprit, which they discover to be a pair of undergarments with an animated frog cartoon on it. Kazuya recognizes the underwear as Chisato's, but she denies it, prompting the underwear to flee to the school roof. Kiriha and Kazuya quickly catch up to it, where the Amasogi gathers curses and transforms into a giant frog monster. Kazuya and Kiriha battle it, but are unable to damage the frog. Chisato, Shiro, and Osamu arrive at the rooftop, where Kazuya once again asks if the underwear belonged to her. They tell Chisato that she needs to admit the underwear is hers, and her desire for underwear gave birth to the Amasogi. Chisato reluctantly admits the underwear is hers, but denies having such a desire, which they realize would have been odd. Kazuya and Kiriha defeat the frog monster, and it reverts to its underwear form. Chisato tells them that though the underwear is hers, they have been put away for a long time. Kiriha tells Kazuya to strip, and Kazuya takes off his boxers. They give the boxers to the Amasogi, who Kiriha deduces is lonely from being discarded and unused. The pieces of underwear float up to the sky into a beam of light viewed from across town. Kiriha tells Chisato this was the best outcome for the underwear, and she agrees. The group stands triumphantly, aside from Kazuya, who remains without underwear and covers himself in embarrassment. The undergarments continue to fly up into the sky, eventually ending up in space, where an astronaut spots them. Later that night, Osamu is interviewed on TV about the beam of light while Kokyu consumes vast amounts of food. Kazuya and Kiriha bathe, discussing the unusual case of Chisato's underwear, which did behave like a normal Amasogi or Tsugumomo. Kasumi's mind races while doing the laundry, wondering where Kazuya's underwear went, concluding that Kazuya had sold them. Yasuki Yatsukawa speaks with Mamane, Arumi, and Akito Ashimin at school about the aberration's defeat and prepares for the next one. Kazuya tells Kukuri of a dream he had of Kiriha and a woman with a black obi. Kukuri realizes Kazuya's sealed memories are returning to be a side effect of him using Ascension and tells herself she will warn Kiriha about using it later. Kiriha arrives at the Sumragi residence's front door, but no one answers. Sunao suddenly is launched out of her house through the walls at the side of the door. Kiriha checks to see if Sunao is okay and meets Susumu Sumragi, who begins to cry over Sunao, worrying if she is okay. Emerging from the broken wall, Suzuri Sumragi tells her husband not to indulge Sunao. Sunao gets up to continue her duel with her mother and is promptly defeated. Kiriha meets with Sunao in her home, where Sunao apologizes for the trouble she has caused her and Kazuya. Sunao tells Kiriha that Kotetsu is undergoing repairs, and they are both glad he is alright. Sunao asks how Kanaka died, and Kiriha tells Sunao that she killed Kanaka after she became possessed. Kazuya arrives at the Sumragi residence, amazed at its grandeur. Upon walking closer, he is overcome with an aura of death, while unbeknownst to Kazuya, Susumu stands on the other side of the door, ready to strike him down for hurting Sunao. Suzuri disposes of Susumu, causing the aura to disappear, and invites Kazuya inside. Suzuri leads Kazuya to Sunao, who is wearing a kimono and prostrates herself before Kazuya. After giving the two some tea, Suzuri leaves the two alone and closes the shoji. Sunao apologizes to Kazuya for her previous actions and thanks him for helping her realize what is important to her. Kazuya tells Sunao that she is very honest with her feelings, his words reminding Sunao of her brother. Sunao asks Kazuya out, explaining that she cannot join the Sumragi dojo since Kazuya defeated her in combat unless he marries her. Sunao begs Kazuya before threatening him when Suzuri suddenly returns. Suzuri opens the shoji to find the two acting like a romantic couple. The two attempt to reaffirm themselves as a couple to Suzuri, but Suzuri tests them by having the two bathe together. 20 years ago, Suzuri defeated all her sparring opponents and left to bathe. Her opponents talk about the rule where if one could land a hit on her, they would be married into her family, and about Susumu doing cleaning due to his poor skills. Suzuri enters the bathroom to find Susumu still cleaning. The two slip as Suzuri is about to hit Susumu, and Susumu accidentally hits her with his mop. Suzuri tells Susumu that he has to take responsibility and marry her, and he will be trained into a man befitting the Sumragi dojo. In the present, Suzuri has Sunao and Kazuya bathe together to prove their love for each other. Suzumu hides within the bath waters, waiting to strike Kazuya. Suzumu strikes as the two enter the bath, but accidentally hits Sunao instead. Suzuri again disposes of Susumu, leaving the bath bloody and unusable. Continuing their test, Suzuri has the two sleep together as a couple. Suzuri waits outside for the two to finish. Suno brings Kazuya under the sheets, and the two pretend to have fun. While pretending to be intimate with each other, Suno becomes infatuated with Kazuya. Suzumu barges into the room and attacks again, accidentally anchoring Suno instead of Kazuya. Before he can attack Kazuya, he is disposed of by Suzuri again. Suzuri tells them to continue, but they tell her they have already finished, pointing out a blood stain on their footing. Suzuri inspects the blood spot and then Suno's hymen to find it still intact, discovering the blood from Suno's finger. As punishment for attempting to deceive her, Suzuri brings Suno and Kazuya to a room full of torture equipment. After their punishment, Suno escorts Kazuya off their premises as Suzuri and Susumu see them off. Susumu tells Suzuri she went too far with her actions, forcing them to get married simply because she lost. Suzuri replies, stating the way Suno described her duel with Kazuya gave her a good impression of him. Suzumu realizes the Suno does have feelings for Kazuya and goes off to attack him but is stopped by Suzuri. Suno tells Kazuya they should train together to maintain the illusion of being a couple. When Kazuya points out their lie was already discovered, Suno hits Kazuya and states it's still in effect. Suno talks about what happened, wondering if it was real or not, disappointed to find out Kazuya simply believed it all to be an act. Later that night, Suno squirms around in her footing in embarrassment. Kukuri cleanses the accumulated curse around Kanioka from Hakusen Shrine. Kokyu arrives to offer some tea, but Kukuri collapses. At school, Kirya tells Kazuya about Kukuri collapsing the night before, telling him that continuing his exorcist duties is the most he can do to ease her burdens. During track and field, Mitsuri Mizushima is congratulated by her teacher for beating her previous records, patting her on the head. Mana Minaka pulls Mitsuri away and tells their teacher not to bother her like that. Mana congratulates Mitsuri, and Mitsuri thinks she has always kept her motivated. Akito Ashimin watches the two in the background and grins. At the personal advice club, Kiriha, Kazuya, Osamu Wasanai, Chisato Chikaishi, and Shiro Shiramin go through various requests and concerns they have received. They find nothing of concern aside from numerous complaints about Shiro's behavior. Shiro claims he has standards, only hitting on girls with large melons, which Chisato beats him for. With nothing else to do, Kiriha dismisses the group and Shiro leaves to meet with Mana Minaka, whom he sent a love letter to. Shiro heads to the meeting point atop the school roof only to find Mitsuri with his letter instead, realizing he had put his letter in the wrong locker. Mitsuri asks if Shiro is serious about the letter, expressing her self-doubt compared to someone like Mana. Shiro panics and attempts to comfort Mitsuri, telling her she is cuter. His statement disconcerts Mitsuri, and he fails to hear Shiro explain that his letter was meant for someone else. She accepts Shiro as her boyfriend and leaves before Shiro can say anything else. Later that night, Mitsuri thinks about how fortunate she is, having beaten Mana in running and getting a boyfriend first. The next day at school, the other students are shocked that Shiro has a girlfriend, watching the two walk with their arms together. Shiro tells Mitsuri they should be less obvious with their public display of affection, but Mitsuri ignores his request. Kazuya, Kiriha, Chisato, and Osamu watch from afar, commenting on the situation. Other students comment on how Shiro will inevitably cheat on Mitsuri. Mana confronts Mitsuri and Shiro, telling Mitsuri they should break up and warning her of Shiro's passionate nature. Mitsuri writes off Mana's comments as jealousy and Mana leaves. Mitsuri and Shiro have a date at the school, with Mitsuri offering Shiro some homemade cookies. Mitsuri thanks Shiro, telling him she had always looked up to Mana and is proud of having finally bested her in some regards. Shiro tells Mana that he had always put himself out for girls of his type, earning himself a bad reputation and low popularity. Despite this, Shiro tells Mitsuri it does not bother him because he is comfortable with who he is, but Mitsuri keeps comparing herself to Mana. Shiro warns Mitsuri that if she continues to do so, her happiness will only be temporary, and she needs to decide her worth by herself. Shiro finally confesses that the love letter Mitsuri received was meant for Mana and apologizes. Mitsuri denies his claim and begins hitting him on the chest, causing his Hazakura to fall out. The Hazakura begins to shake, and Shiro realizes Mitsuri has an amisogi in her bag. Shiro asks Mitsuri if she has come across any objects with strange powers. Mitsuri denies it, but Shiro can tell she is lying and warns her of its dangers. Mitsuri continues denying it, crying as she runs away with her bag. Shiro informs the other members of the club that Mitsuri had an amisogi. Osamu rereads one of their earlier requests, realizing it was from Mitsuri. They hurry to find Mitsuri before it can do any harm. Kazuya and Kiriha confront Mitsuri outside of Mana's house, where Kazuya gives his deduction that Mitsuri is trying to kill Mana so she will not lose to her. Mitsuri laughs at Kazuya for being completely wrong, and Kiriha stomps his no-no zone in for it. Mana exits her house to see what the commotion is about. Mitsuri returns the shoes to Mana, explaining how she was grateful for the gift and used them daily, which only worsened her abilities. She explains that her performance improved when she wore a different pair of shoes. With Shiro's explanation of Amasagi, she deduced that Mana had given her the shoes to hinder her abilities. Mana tells Mitsuri of when they first met, of how she always looked up to Mitsuri and wanted to keep ahead of her so she would always be her goal. Mana admits to giving Mitsuri the shoes to slow her down and takes them back. Believing that Mitsuri will never love her and instead hate her for what she has done, Mana dons the shoes to kill Mitsuri instead. Kazuya and Kiriha protect Mitsuri and attempt to flee with her using obi wheels, but Mana easily gains on them using her Amasagi. They relocate to under a bridge to do battle with Mana. Kazuya and Kiriha are quickly overpowered, and Kazuya suggests they use Ascension, which Kiriha rejects, stating it is a last resort. Mitsuri interrupts their fight, calling out to Mana and kissing her. Mitsuri yells at Mana for giving up so easily and not even attempting to apologize. The two make amends, but Mana becomes possessed by the Amasagi. Before being fully taken over, Mana warns Mitsuri to flee. Kazuya carries Mitsuri on her back as they try to evade Mana. With no other choice, Kazuya and Kiriha use Ascension and successfully destroy the shoes. Shiro expresses his surprise at school to the other club members that Mana was the Amasagi host. Mana arrives in a wheelchair, explaining she lost her ability to walk soon after she returned home. Kazuya blames himself for Mana's cursed backlash, but Mana tells him not to and states she is grateful to him. Chisato asks about Mitsuri, and Mana points out that the person pushing her is Mitsuri. The group is surprised at Mitsuri's sudden change in appearance. Shiro attempts to ask Mitsuri out for real, but is rejected. Kiriha thinks to herself how the timing of the Amasagi possessing Mana was too much of a coincidence, suspecting something at play. Kazumi Kagami wakes up to Kiryu rubbing her rib cage and screams. Kasumi Kagami rushes to Kazumi's room to punish Kiryu. Kazumi and Kiryu meet at school with their friends Shitone Shiramin, Osano Sanai, and Chiko Chikaishi. Kazumi notes something feels strange, to which Kiryu suggests that she forgot her garments and lifted her skirt. While Chiko beats Kiryu for her perversion, Osane opens her notebook, remembers they are in a dream, and informs the others. A few days earlier, Isuzu Ariga took attendance in an empty classroom. As Suju leaves to ask the other teachers what to do, leaving the class alone, Shiro brings up rumors of one of the absent students suffering from an unnatural sleep sickness. The group heads to their clubroom to further discuss the spreading of sleep sickness amongst the students. To help with their investigation, Kiriha tells the group she has arranged for a class advisor for the club. Shiro quickly fantasizes about who it could be but is disappointed to find out it is Kukuri. Kazuya, Kiriha, Kukuri, and Chisato head home of the first sleep sickness victim to investigate. Kukuri attributes the phenomena to be caused by a pillow Tsukumogame, but there is no response upon inspecting the victim's pillow with her Hazakura. After investigating the first 3 victims to no avail, they return to the clubroom to continue the discussion. Shiro comments on the 3 victims as being friends and frequently causing trouble. Looking for clues about the 3 of them, Kazuya realizes they were marked as sick instead of absent despite their parents never phoning in about it. Kazuya confronts their teacher, Isuzu, about this, but Isuzu retreats into her dream world and falls asleep. Isuzu is brought to her home, where they identify her pillow as the Amasagi. Being unable to destroy the pillow because it entrapped the students within the dream world, Kukuri invites the pillow's Sugumomo Bakura to help them enter the dream and convince Isuzu to destroy the Amasagi from within. Bakura explains how the dream world works for them, sending Kazuya, Kiriha, Chisato, Osamu, and Shiro inside. Shiro writes a message in his sketchbook to help them realize they are in the dream once they enter. Tadataka Tadata stays in the real world to watch for anything wrong. Within the dream world, after realizing they are in a dream, Kazuya and Kiriha go to confront Isuzu. They plead with Isuzu to leave the dream and destroy the pillow, but Isuzu dons a monstrous grin. She reveals that they had planned for their arrival, and the pillow they had stolen in advance was a fake. Behind the corner, the fake pillow Shiro, Chisato, and Osamu had recovered bursts into flames. From Kazuya and Kiriha's shadows, their shadow selves manifest. The four burst through the school building to the outside as they began to fight. Chisato, Osamu, and Shiro watch from the destroyed wall, but are suddenly surrounded by the shadows of other students and soon their own. Isuzu preaches about their shadows being more obedient and offers to release the students if they accept their shadow selves. Chisato rejects her, stating her proposition is more than forcibly controlling her students. Isuzu orders the shadows to attack, but a cloud of chalk dust appears, and the three escape. As Kazuya and Kiriha battle with their shadow selves, they find themselves being overpowered as they can create more OB projections. Shadow Kazuya attacks Kazuya and slowly begins to take him over. Chisato, Osamu, and Shiro escape to a classroom with the help of a girl who reveals herself as the real Isuzu. Isuzu explains how her students never took her seriously and how she eventually stumbled upon the pillow. Within her dreams, she could be as assertive as she wanted, but in reality, nothing changed, and students ended up being dragged into her dreams without her realizing it, which she suspects was her shadow's plan. Isuzu reveals that her shadow has the pillow, but they cannot obtain it with Kazuya busy. Osamu tells them he has an idea. Isuzu confronts her shadow self, landing a surprise attack on it using Yojijukugo idioms written on paper to power herself up. She identifies the pillow as within its body, but is quickly restrained by other shadows before she can get it. Shadow Isuzu uses the paper to transform herself into a giant spider. Before Shadow Kazuya can take over, Kazuya breaks free. Kazuya and his shadow self have a final clash using spiral weaves, and Kazuya defeats his shadow. Shadow Isuzu strikes at Isuzu in its giant spider form, but is hit by Chisato's library golem and Osamu's sketchbook dragon. At the same time, Shiro uses his perfume to lure the shadow students away from Isuzu. The shadow covers Osamu and Chisato in the web, but they are quickly freed by Kazuya, who saves them from the spider after rescuing Shiro first. Kazuya flips the spider over and restrains it, allowing Isuzu to finish it off and destroy the pillow. With their work done, Bakura messages them all to return to sleep in the dream world to wake up in reality. The next day at school, Kazuya and Kiriha comment on Isuzu having grown more assertive. Before exiting the dream world, Shiro checks out his gender-swapped body but fails to get turned on by it. Osamu reasons since they are currently female, they would be attracted to males instead. Shiro argues he is simply not attracted to himself, disproving Osamu's argument playing and getting excited by Osane instead. Kazuya and Kiriha are lounging in their room reading manga when the doorbell rings. Answering the door, Kazuya is met with a distraught Sunao. Sunao informs Kazuya, Kiriha, and Kukuri that Kotetsu has been unable to wake up since being repaired, and that Hanoka advised her to seek out the echoing stone within the cave of the Divine Navel. She informs them that it is too dangerous for her to go alone, and Hanoka cannot follow her there, so she seeks out Kazuya and Kiriha. The group quickly travels to their destination by train and rents a room in a large hotel. Kazuya is amazed by the luxuriousness of the hotel, to which Kiriha explains their accommodations were already taken care of. Kiriha turns to Sunao, telling her to stop sulking. Sunao tells them she was thinking about Kotetsu and what she will say to him the next day after being mean to him for so long. Kiriha has the three of them bathe together. While doing so, Kiriha and Kazuya's interaction reminds Sunao of when she and Kotetsu bathed together as a child. Kiriha interrupts her thoughts, asking if she wants Kazuya to wash her and turning her towards Kazuya to her embarrassment. The three have a large, luxurious feast together, during which Kiriha has Kazuya feed her some of his food. After dinner, the three head to bed, where Sunao is surprised to learn Kazuya and Kiriha sleep together. Kazuya tells Sunao that Kiriha always pushes, too, and Kiriha begins teasing Kazuya as she takes them under their blanket. Kazuya whispers to Kiriha that they need to be more considerate towards Sunao. Still, Kiriha states that Sunao does not understand Kotetsu's feelings and will not be able to return him. Kiriha reveals that she, Kukuri, and Hanoka all know why Kotetsu has not reawakened but needs to have Sunao realize herself. She continues to play around with Kazuya to help her do so. That night, Sunao dreams of herself having a conversation with Kotetsu. Sunao tries to speak to Kotetsu, but all he does is apologize, and Sunao awakes from her dream before she can reach out to him. She looks around to see Kiriha and Kazuya sleeping together, and then takes Kotetsu to examine him and reflect. The next day, the three walk through a forest and reach the cave. Entering the cave, they eventually reach a large room with a giant stone tablet. Sunao places Kotetsu on the echo stone and prays for Kotetsu to wake up. A large plant-like bulb appears from the blade, with Kotetsu sleeping in his human form inside. Sunao calls out to Kotetsu, apologizing and begging him to wake up. Numerous amisoji appear around them, which Sunao recognizes as those she and Kotetsu defeated in the past. Kiriha deduces they are manifestations of Kotetsu's self-doubt and tells Sunao to continue calling out to Kotetsu while she and Kazuya defend them. Kiriha tells Sunao she has to give Kotetsu what he desires. Sunao continues calling out to Kotetsu, apologizing to no avail and pondering what he wants. As Kotetsu sleeps, he hears Sunao's voice but believes he is imagining it because he wants to. Kotetsu reflects on his past failures, believing Sunao would tell him he is not needed even if he were to awaken. A manifestation of Suo Sumiraji appears in Kotetsu's mind, telling him that fear and doubt will dull his edge as a katana and that he should focus on what he wants most. The aberration that killed Suo manifests amongst the amisoji and defeats Kazuya. It begins devouring the orb that Kotetsu is encased in. Sunao attempts to run towards it, but Kazuya stops her and tells Kiriha they use Ascension. Kiriha rejects it, stating if they were unable to defeat it before Ascension wore off, they would all die. The monster swallows Kotetsu, and Sunao breaks down into tears. Sunao gets up as both she and Kotetsu simultaneously realize what they want is to be with each other. Kotetsu bursts out of the aberration's mouth from a light beam and is reawakened. Sunao and Kotetsu cry, and they apologize and hold each other. Kazuya cries too, watching the two reconcile. The aberration attacks Sunao and Kotetsu, but is instantly defeated as the two use Ascension to destroy it. They were returning to the hotel. Kazuya continues crying joyfully for the two, which Kiriha hits him for. Sunao lies immobile on the floor, unaware of the side effects of Ascension, which Kazuya and Kiriha explain to her and Kotetsu. Kazuya and Kotetsu add blindfolded as they help Sunao bathe while Kiriha watches. Returning home, Sunao and Kotetsu thank Kukuri for her help. Kiriha tells Kazuya that the entire commotion was caused by the thought of its Sogumomon not being wanted by their owners, and that they are quite emotional. Kazuya reassures Kiriha that he wishes to be with her forever, causing her to blush. Sunao continues thanking Kukuri, thanking her for paying for their stay, which Kukuri is confused by. Hokuyu comes to tell Kukuri that Tiger Kaneyama has come to visit her. Tiger states she has come to collect Kukuri as promised, which further confuses Kukuri. Kiriha gives the go-ahead, and Tagiri drags Kukuri away. Kazuya realizes that Tagiri had paid for their expenses, and Kiriha reveals she had traded Kukuri away for 3 days in exchange. Isuzu Ariha speaks with the Personal Advice Club, telling them that her Amisaji pillow was given to her, but she cannot recall Baikum. The group suspects the recent Amisaji incidents were caused deliberately but wonders why. Mei rocks back and forth in her chair, complaining about boredom. She blames Kazuya Kagami and Kiriha for destroying the previous Amisoji and exclaims her desire to take them out. Akido Ashimine rejects Mimane, reminding her that they promised not to. Mimane says she will eliminate the two herself, prompting Azami to attack Mimane and Yasuki Yatsukawa to defend her. Akido tells the two to stop and apologizes to Azami. Azami reminds them of their deal and disappears. Yasuki questions if they can truly trust her, but Akido says they have no choice. Several hundred years ago, in a certain house, Akido, Arumi, and Hifumi all became Sugumomo simultaneously. As surrogate siblings, they made a deal with the master of the house to serve them, but on the condition they be treated as people as well. The master found the most use of Hifumi and her ability to manipulate luck. They lived peacefully until monsters began attacking the village, and Hifumi began to weaken. Hifumi told her siblings that the monsters resulted from their master abusing Hifumi's power by having villagers continually roll Hifumi's die to avoid falling to misfortune and becoming a monster himself. When Hifumi tried to stop their master, he threatened the well-being of Akido and Arumi, forcing Hifumi into compliance. When Akido and Arumi told the villagers what their master was doing, they formed a mob, killing their master and Hifumi as well. They soon turned their weapons towards Akido and Arumi, leaving Akido to slay them all. The two sworn siblings would leave the village, wandering and shifting from one master to the next, eventually growing tired of serving anyone. One day, Akito and Arumi encountered a red bowl floating through a river. Upon retrieving the bowl, a gateway opened up, bringing the two to a pocket dimension they would alter, known as Mayoiga. Upon entering Mayoiga, they were immediately attacked by Yasuki, who shot an arrow towards their feet. Being unable to negotiate with Yasuki, Akito was forced to defend himself and Arumi until Mamane arrived and interrupted their battle out of curiosity. The two were brought to Taman, who formally welcomed them to Mayoiga and explained its existence. Akito and Arumi lived in Mayoiga peacefully, but at the same time, Akito wondered about various Mayoiga, which Taman and the others had refrained from explaining so far. One day, two Tsubumoma reverted to their original forms. Then Taman told Akito and Arumi the truth about Mayoiga, of how their founder Mayurahi obtained the power to create Mayoiga by killing a god, stealing their stone shard to use as their own. He tells them their current shard's power is waning and asks if they will aid Mayoiga in killing a god to obtain a new one. After thinking it over, Akito and Arumi decide to join Mayoiga in hunting for a stone shard. Using Arumi's power of divination, they decided when was best to act. As time passed and more of them lost power, some Tsubumoma grew discontent with relying on Arumi's divination. Genbu led a protest at the gates of Mayoiga, but soon after, Arumi received a divination of a black mass. Akito, Arumi, Mamane, Yasuki, and Chikage captured it and brought it to Mayoiga. There, the black mass revealed itself as Azami. Azami told them which god was the most suitable target and how to weaken them further. Azami cooperated with them in exchange for them following her terms. Akito, Arumi, Mamane, and Yasuki were sent to Kanioka to carry out Azami's plan. In the present, Akito reminds the other three that they need Azami's cooperation for their goals. Azami spies on Kazuya and Kiriha from an alleyway, going to an arcade. Sometime during their early days at Mayoiga, Arumi took a bath with Mamane at their hot springs. There, Mamane teased Arumi about her and Akito being lovers and played with her toy. Kiriha, Kazuya Kagami, Mamane Miyu, and Akito Ashimane find themselves in a tournament arena as an announcer introduces the Iron Fist tournament. Moments prior, Akito fails at getting a toy for Mamane from the crane game. Akito asks if Mamane is ready to leave, but Mamane protests. Mamane spots an aisle of Iron Fist arcade cabinets and jumps over it, landing atop Kazuya sitting beside Kiriha. Mamane recognizes Kazuya and expresses so aloud. Mamane greets Kiriha aloud, but neither she nor Kazuya recognizes her. Akito signals to Mamane and she tells them that she knows them from school. Before Akito can leave, Mamane calls over to him to play with them. Kazuya recognizes Akito from their class and welcomes him to play with them. Before Akito can reject, he notices Izami watching them from afar and her curse accumulating. Kiriha's Hazakura begins ringing, and they are suddenly pulled into the arcade game's world, leading to their current situation. Just as Kiriha and Kazuya speak about dealing with the Amasogi's owner quickly, Hiroki Hirohashi reveals himself as the owner and host of the tournament. The four are put on a team, and the tournament begins with Kiriha fighting first against her opponent, Daruman. Kiriha is quickly defeated due to her lack of understanding of fighting game mechanics. Kiriha is dressed in a bikini and cat ears as a penalty for her loss. Kiriha embarrassingly leaves the ring. Kazuya questions why Kiriha is embarrassed, to which she explains being exposed in public is different than her doing it for Kazuya specifically. Akito enters the ring, telling Kazuya he is familiar with the game. He easily defeats Daruman and forgoes penalizing the opponent with a costume change. Akito's next opponent reveals himself as the sword-wielding Kenshiro. Kiriha calls him out for cheating, but Hiroki explains weapons are allowed in the tournament. Akito blocks all Kenshiro's attacks by subtly transforming his arms into blades without Kazuya and Kiriha noticing. Once his meter is full, Akito disarms Kenshiro and deals a fatal blow, but is also defeated in the process, resulting in a draw. Both teams receive a penalty, resulting in Mamane getting dressed in a bunny suit, though Akito abstains from enforcing a penalty on the enemy. Mamane battles Namikawa in the next match of the tournament. Before beginning, Akito tells Mamane not to use her powers, which Mamane assures him she will not. As soon as their fight begins, Mamane uses her powers to reflect an attack, getting in an instant KO. Kazuya and Kiriha are surprised by Mamane's ability. At the same time, Akito is stupefied by her actions. Hiroki reveals himself as the final combatant of the opponent team. Mimane attempts to confuse and outmaneuver Hiroki, but is cowed by his extending limb punches. Kazuya uses Kiriha to fight Hiroki in the final match of the tournament. Despite granting himself several power-ups, Hiroki is defeated by Kazuya. The five leave the arcade world as Hiroki agrees to destroy the Amasoji. Outside, Azami looks around for them as they return to the real world. Hiroki thanks Kazuya for helping him realize his desire for battle and leaves, exclaiming he will travel the world. Azami angrily glares at Akido and tries to signal to Mimane that they need to leave. Mimane misinterprets this and kisses Kazuya instead, injuring Azami further. Azami accidentally destroys the ceiling, which begins collapsing on her, but Kazuya saves her. Kazuya offers Azami a handkerchief to wipe her face, and Azami calms down and blushes. Kiriha arrives to see what happened, but Azami has already disappeared before Kazuya can explain. Kiriha asks Mimane if she is a mirrored Sugumomo, which Mimane immediately confirms to Akido's dismay. Kiriha suggests the two of them be friends while Akido is forced to explain that he is Mimane's owner. Returning to the classroom at night, Akido explains what occurred to Yasuki and Arumi. Akido tells himself he needs to be more careful and avoid Kazuya and Kiriha as much as possible. The next day, Akido and Arumi are trapped by an Amasoji, Kazuya, and Kiriha. Akido introduces the two to Arumi as his sister. Wakana Wakisaka reveals herself as the Amasogi's owner and explains the rules of her game. The two pairs are forced to roll dice to progress and answer intimate questions as they do. Akido and Arumi are eventually separated from the other two. At their second question, Akido incorrectly answers which part of Arumi's body is most sensitive. Arumi knocks out Akido before Wakana can reveal the answer. As a penalty for answering wrong, they are sent back, and Arumi has an article of clothing removed. After many penalties, the two eventually catch up to Kazuya and Kiriha at the final question. For the final question, Wakana asks who the male partner has loved the most. Kiriha answers herself for Kazuya, which is incorrect. Kiriha rattles Kazuya's collar in a rage before the two are sent back to the start. Akido ponders a bit about who he loves the most before Arumi offers to answer for him. Arumi answers correctly, and the four are returned to the school. Akido informs the Kazuya and Kiriha that Wakana destroyed the Amasoji as a reward for finishing the game and explains why she used it. Kazuya invites Akido to join their club, but Akido rejects. Kiriha hints towards Mimane, having told her something about Akido, successfully blackmailing Akido to join the club. Later that night, Akido explains to Yasuki and Mimane that he has joined Kazuya's club. At home that night, Kiriha explains to Kukuri, Kasumi Kagami, and Kokuyu how she was not Kazuya's most loved girl. The three get fidgety and the prospect that Kazuya's favorite may be themselves. Kokuyu suggests they simply ask Kazuya, leading to an interrogation. After refusing to answer, Bakura arrives to use a special pillow to put Kazuya to sleep and enter his dreams to find the answer. Within the dream, they find Kazuya flirting with a female version of himself. Kazuya recalls his childhood memories when he created an Amasoji eraser and was scolded by his mother. He remembers his mother was an exorcist, but does not recognize her when speaking to her in his dreams. Kanaka tells him it is because of the seal and leaves, telling Kazuya he needs to get ready. Kazuya is awakened by Kiriha's foot landing on his face. Akido explains to Azami that he joined Kazuya's club, requesting her permission. Azami does not answer, remaining wrapped in her obi. Mimane lifts the obi to find Azami sniffing the handkerchief she had received from Kazuya the other day. Upon realizing she is unwrapped, Azami quickly wraps herself back up and allows Akido to join the club so long as he does not harm Kazuya. Yasuki warns Akido and Mimane of the potential dangers since the club advisor, Kukuri, is also their target. Akido states there are also benefits to getting close to her, and Yasuki once again warns Akido to be careful of Mimane's behavior. The four Mayoiga Tsukumomo leave the classroom, leaving Azami alone. Azami communicates with her other half in Mayoiga to give her a status update, stating the situation has not changed. Akido and Mimane introduce themselves to the other club members. Chisato is surprised about Akido owning a Tsukumomo, and Shiro asks him about his sister's big bust, which Chisato hits him for. Kiriha explains that Akido and Mimane will deal with Amasoji like she and Kazuya do. Akido states he and Mimane are not suited for combat, to which Kiriha suggests they test them out on an aberration currently active on the school campus. The group meets outside, where a large spiked rock is present. Akito asks Mamane if it was her doing, which she denies, leaving Akito to conclude it was a naturally occurring amasagi. Osami states the aberration to be caused by Kikikomori syndrome, implying the owner is inside. Kiriha tells them persuasion will not work and suggests Akito use force to get the owner out. Mimane demonstrates her ability to copy the appearance and ability of others using Kiriha. Akito tries attacking the rock with Mamane's copied Kiriha abilities to no avail. Kiriha teaches Akito and Mamane a few more techniques, but they still fail to damage the rock. Shiro suggests they use their jugs as the solution. Before Chisato can hit him, Shiro explains his reasoning, citing the myth of Ami no Yuzune's bear dance to lure Amaterasu out of a cave as an example of a similar situation. Mimane goes ahead with Shiro's plan and strips while still in Kiriha's form, prompting Kiriha to hit Mimane. The rock owner does not respond, and Shiro suggests they need someone with larger bazookas, annoying Kiriha. Mimane goes to copy Arumi's appearance and returns, transforming into Arumi. Shiro fondles the Arumi doubles jubblies while the real Arumi runs towards the scene. Mimane and Shiro are both hit for their actions. The rock does not respond to Arumi's pair either, and Mimane suggests to Arumi that they both get bear to double its effect. Arumi tells Mimane to get bear herself and tears Mimane's clothes off. The Amasogi's host comes out to take a picture of Mimane and is then knocked out and has his phone destroyed. Kukuri arrives to congratulate them on dealing with the Amasogi. Akito and Mimane introduce themselves to Kukuri. Akito thinks to himself how a child like Kukuri could be a god, barely sensing any spiritual energy from her. He begins to doubt Azami's words, suggesting they must wait longer, but understands they need Azami to maintain contact and travel between Neoiga. Mimane suddenly asks Kukuri about being a god and to show off her powers. Kukuri complies, summoning a bucket's worth of water, which lands on Kiriha. Kiriha begins grappling with Kukuri, leading Akito to have further doubts. Later that night, Akito reports the day's activities to Yasuki. Yasuki expresses his concerns about Mimane's behavior, only for Arumi and Akito to realize she is not there with them. Meanwhile, Mimane barges into the bathroom of Kazuya's house while Kazuya and Kiriha are bathing. Mimane announces she is staying over, stating Akito wants to learn about Kazuya. Mimane asks to see Kazuya's eggplant, causing a stir while Kukuri and Kokuyu stand atop the roof. Before cleaning the town's accumulated curse, Kukuri senses Fort Sugumomo having entered the town. Kukuri asks Kokuyu to bring them over, and Kokuyu flies away. Entering the house, Mimane hugs Kukuri. Mimane tries to tell Kukuri about Kazuya's Excalibur, but Kazuya interrupts her as he sulks in the corner. Mimane continues anyway, telling Kukuri about Kazuya's ding-dong, causing Kazuya to cry. Kiriha and Kukuri try to reassure Kazuya not to be ashamed of his hot rod when Kukuri sneezes. Kukuri states she got a little cold from standing outside, prompting Mimane to drag her bath to warm up. Mimane caresses Kukuri in the bath, and the two eventually get overheated from staying too long. Kokuyu returns home badly damaged, being carried by Tigiri Kaneyama. After getting Kokuyu a place to lie down, she explains her encounter with the Fort Sugumomo who entered the town. When meeting them, Kokuyu called them out on their suspicious behavior, prompting them to attack her. Kokuyu was quickly overpowered but rescued by Tigiri. Kazuya questions why Sugumomo would attack them. Tigiri and Kukuri explain the Sugumomo to have likely been from Meoiga and are after Kukuri's stone shard. Tigiri states she was likely followed when carrying Kokuyu back, making their location a target for attack once the assailants regroup. Tigiri divides the group to deal with the assassins, counting one group shot before Kiriha introduces their new club members to her. Mimane relays the situation to Akito, Arumi, and Yasuki in the classroom using a mirror. They identify the drawings of the assailants as Genbu, Hyuka, Senga, and Jungo. Yasuki wonders how they had left Neoiga. Akito states the other Azami would not have allowed them, but notices Azami is not present with them either. Yasuki suggests they use the chance to work with the other Meoiga members to defeat Kukuri. Mimane tells Yasuki he is too optimistic and explains she was able to ascertain Kukuri's strength while staying over with her, telling them Kukuri is still too powerful. As proof, Mimane shows them footage of Kukuri from the bath, causing Arumi to get flustered and close the mirror. Akito and Mimane arrive at Kazuya's house, agreeing to help. Mimane shows off her mirror powers to Tigiri, including footage of Kukuri in the bath, and Tagiri suggests they be friends. While waiting for the assassins to arrive, Tagiri tells the others to keep their opponents alive to be interrogated later. As she says so, the four Tsugumomo appear, walking down the street toward them. Shortly after Akido and Arumi arrive in Mayoiga, Mamane pesters Arumi about wanting to bathe together, which Arumi rejects after what happened. Akido and Chikage arrive at the room with Chikage having brought a futon for the two of them to share. Chikage teases them about it, and Arumi gets a little flustered. Akido and Chikage leave to spar, and Mamane leaves with them, leaving Arumi alone in the house. Akido returns to the room, physically advancing Arumi and pinning her to the ground. Arumi allows Akido to continue, only for Akido to respond in Mamane's voice, revealing herself as Mamane having disguised herself as Akido. Arumi wrestles Mamane around, only for the real Akido and Chikage to return and witness Arumi pinning Mamane to the futon. Akido quickly closes the door, and he and Chikage leave before Arumi can explain herself. Akido, Mamane, Tagiri Kanayama, Kazuya, and Kiriha split up to fight Genbu, Senga, Jungu, and Kyuka. Genbu confronts Akido and Mamane, telling him not to interfere. Akido states it is not yet time to strike. Genbu reminds Akido of how many of their comrades have fallen waiting, but Akido apologizes and prepares to battle. While running, Senga and Jungu are caught in a barrier set up by Tagiri, who then confronts them. Elsewhere, Kazuya and Kiriha battle Kyuka, struggling with their opponent as she taunts them. As Genbu and Akido fight, Mamane offers to help, but Akido rejects her offer. After exchanging blows and landing a few slashes on Genbu, Akido warns him to return to Mayoiga again, but Genbu refuses. They clash again, but Genbu blocks Akido's attack with a scissors case, paralyzing him, and then goes in for a finishing strike. Tagiri struggles with her opponents and gets struck in the chest by Senga's fan, collapsing to the ground. The two claim that Tagiri underestimated them, saying their power rivals her after growing old. Kazuya continues to struggle in his fight with Kyuka, being sent flying back. Kiriha returns to her human form to defend Kazuya from an oncoming attack. Kazuya suggests they use Ascension, but once again, Kiriha warns him of the dangers, reminding him to fight smarter and not let his anger get to him. Kyuka begins taunting them about how she fought Kokuyo and how she looks forward to killing her and Kukuri. Kazuya calls Kiriha's true name and forcibly activates Ascension. Kyuka is surprised about seeing someone capable of using Ascension, while Kiriha is surprised that Kazuya used her true name. Using Ascension, Kazuya quickly overpowers Kyuka, negating her attacks and cornering her. Kyuka begs for her life as Kazuya delivers the final blow, while Kiriha tells Kazuya not to kill her. Kazuya's punch stops just short of Kyuka's gut, and Kyuka pisses herself before collapsing to her knees. Senga and Jungu brag about having easily defeated Tagiri, only for Tagiri to get up and reveal herself unharmed, unveiling a set of coin armor beneath her clothes. Done with gauging the enemy's power, Tagiri kills them instantly with her flowing iron sand, which they futilely attempt to block. Tagiri steps on their destroyed bodies and reminds herself that she was supposed to keep one alive for interrogation, but states they got what they deserved for targeting Kukuri. Genbu goes for a finishing strike on Akido when he suddenly stops, finding chopsticks embedded in his chest. Akido reveals they are made from iron birch, also known as axe-breaking birch, which they had time to get since they knew Genbu was coming. Genbu pulls the chopsticks out of himself, and the two prepare for the final exchange. Genbu is destroyed, and Mamane reminds Akido of Tagiri, telling them not to kill their opponents. Akido states it did not matter since Genbu would not give up their secrets anyway. Mamane questions how Genbu and his group planned to take the stone shard back to Mayoiga if they had succeeded, since they would not have enough energy to travel back, especially if they knew they would be busy fighting them. Akido realizes that Genbu's group is a distraction, and he has more allies waiting to target Kukuri. At the Hakuzen Shrine, Kukuri confronts 6 Tsugumomo from Mayoiga, with Rokaku stepping up to kill Kukuri in one swift blow. Mamane, Akido, and Kazuya travel to Kukuri's location via rooftops as fast as they can, only to arrive and witness Kukuri destroy Rokaku with ease. The remaining assassin prepares to fight Kukuri. Kazuya attempts to help, but a barrier prevents him from getting closer. Kukuri quickly destroys her opponents, leaving only the fishing rod Tsugumomo. Both Kazuya and Akido are amazed by Kukuri's power. The fishing rod Tsugumomo launches his final attack, summoning a large monstrous sea creature, but Kukuri easily destroys it and kills him with a single attack. The barrier is released and the group meets up with Kukuri. Kazuya, Mimane, and Tagiri praise Kukuri. Kazuya's ascension wears off and Kiriha returns to her human form, grappling Kukuri for killing her opponents instead of leaving one alive as planned. Returning to the Kagami household, they find all the Mayoiga Tsugumomo have been destroyed, except for Kyuka, the flute that Kazuya battled. Kiriha explains that after their battle, Kyuka collapsed and reverted to her object form, which Kukuri surmises as her having used up too much energy. Kukuri gives Kyuka to Kazuya as his temporary partner to restore her spiritual energy. Kukuri congratulates the group on a job well done, and Tagiri suggests she also takes a break, offering some sake. Kiriha states they should go to another room while leaving Kazuya and Kokyu to rest. Kazuya apologizes to Kiriha for using her true name to force commands onto her, but Kiriha does not respond. Akido and Mimane leave and begin to walk home. While walking, Arumi arrives to tell them there has been a revolt in Mayoiga. Tagiri and Kukuri help Kazuya bathe while he is paralyzed from using Ascension. Kukuri acts affectionately towards Kazuya, which Tagiri explains is because she got Kukuri drunk earlier while celebrating. Tagiri records Kukuri as she washes Kazuya's body with her own. Kazuya asks Tagiri for help, but Tagiri charges him money for it. Kukuri lies in bed with Kazuya after getting sick from drinking too much, while Tagiri Kaneyama takes pictures of her. Kiriha asks Tagiri what the two gods will do about the recent assassination attempt. Tagiri tells them she has contacted Takamagahara about the incident and explains it. Kazuya asks if they are sending more gods as reinforcement, which Tagiri denies, explaining the dangers of doing so. She tells them they have contacted Suzura Temple, who will send help. The doorbell rings and Kiriha goes to answer it, being met with Suno, Sumiraji, and Kotetsu. Akido, Arumi, Mimane, and Yasuki arrive in Mayoiga, witnessing several smoking buildings in the distance. They are suddenly surrounded by clay constructs from Sanjuro, which attack them. Azami tells them to kill Sanjuro, telling them Sanjuro has already killed several Mayoiga Tsugumomo. Mimane uses her abilities to find Sanjuro amongst the clay figures, allowing Akido to kill him. Chikage arrives to greet them, explaining that Sanjuro was the last of the revolters and telling them to speak with Taman for more details. Mimane tackles Chikage to hug her, causing one of Sanjuro's constructs to fall on them. Akido and Yasuki speak with Taman, who explains the entire radical group within Mayoiga rebelled, and in Genbu's absence, the remaining Tsugumomo ran amok. Yasuki asks how they could have accomplished such feats when the village leaders were more powerful. Taman explains they sinned, feeding on humans to gain power. He reminds the two that though Mayoiga is a gathering of Tsukumogami who are fed up humans, Tsukumogami cannot exist without humans and is forbidden to do such a thing. Akido debriefs Taman on what occurred to Genbu and his group. Taman estimates their entire village would not be enough to defeat Kukuri, wanting to use Arumi's divination to decide their next course of action. Akido tells Taman that Arumi and the other girls went to take a bath after getting covered in Sanjuro's mud. Taman gets up to leave but is stopped by Aurora and Sorera. Chikage, Arumi, Mimane, and Arumi bathe in the hot springs. Chikage notices Azami washing her obi bundle, and Azami tells them it is important. Mimane offers to help wash it, but Azami rejects it. Mimane starts bouncing around on it, prompting Azami to restrain her with her obi. Mimane instead offers to wash Azami, which Azami accepts, only for Mimane to start playing with her. Meanwhile, Taman is left tied up alone. Kazuya wakes up and heads to the bathroom, where he finds Suno and is punched for walking in. Kukuri explains to Kazuya that Suno and Kotetsu were sent as reinforcements by Tsuzura Temple. Suno tells them they will be living at Kazuya's place for now. Suno transfers to Kazuya's school, where she introduces herself to her class. Suno fantasizes about attending the same school as Kazuya before realizing he is in a different class. Meanwhile, Shiro expresses his excitement at the news of a new attractive transfer student, only to be met with a little surprise from Kazuya and Kiriha. Suno sulks in class after separating from Kazuya but fires herself up over the other opportunities they will have to interact. Shiro is shocked that Suno is joining their personal advice club and questions why Kazuya has yet another attractive female companion. Kazuya explains Suno's reason for coming and how Kukuri was attacked the previous day. Sunao and Kotetsu introduce themselves. Shiro comments on it being a long commute from Komiya, to which Sunao explains she will be staying at the Kagami household for her stay. Shiro violently shakes Kazuya by the collar, while Chisato thinks she should also move in with him. Sunao takes Kazuya out to train under the bridge, where Sunao begins choking out Kazuya for bailing out on his previously promised training sessions. Kazuya and Sunao spar unarmed, and Kazuya admits defeat. Sunao tells them they will be sparring with their Sogumomo next, but Kazuya tells her Kiriha has been busy as of late. At home, Kazuya is blindfolded while bathing with Sunao. Kazuya tells Sunao she should have taken a bath first, but Sunao tells her as a guest she should not, also citing other concerns. Before leaving home, Suzuri Sumereji told Sunao that staying at Kazuya's home would be a prime opportunity to build their relationship. Sunao denies liking Kazuya, but Suzuri pulls a photo of Kazuya she had as evidence of the contrary. Suzuri warns Sunao that she will know if she fails to make any progress with Kazuya. Sunao explains that bathing with Kazuya was her mother's idea and that they needed to fool her. While bathing together, Sunao asks Kazuya if something has happened between him and Kiriha. Kazuya explains how he used her true name to order Kiriha the other day, and though he apologized, promising never to do so again, he still has not been forgiven. Sunao tells Kazuya he is failing to understand why Kiriha is angry, and that Kiriha is upset about being treated as a tool. Kazuya tells Kiriha she is his only Tsukumogami partner, and he wants to stay with her forever. Kiriha blushes, and he tells her that she is irreplaceable to him. Kiriha smiles and tells Kazuya to get her some pudding to be fully forgiven. Sunao and Kazuya spar again under the bridge, using their Sogumomo and Kukuri to oversee them, while Osamu, Chisato, and Shiro watch. After they are done, Kazuya thanks Sunao for helping him resolve things with Kiriha. Kazuya tells Sunao she is a great friend, disappointing Sunao and causing her to sulk. By a river, Akido contemplates his conversation with Kazuya before he leaves. Kazuya told Akido he would not torture answers out of Kyuka, understanding that humans may have unfairly treated her and the other Myoiga, but wishing to find good partners for all of them so there would be no need for conflict. Akido believes Kazuya is naive, having lived for so long, and concludes that Tsukumogami and humans cannot coexist. Harumi arrives to tell Akido that Taman is calling for a meeting. At the meeting, Taman tells the group that after Arumi's divination had shown 2 stone shards, he had decided to reawaken Mirai. Mirai introduces himself to the group and apologizes for his failings, causing the group trouble. Chikage asks about his shard's curse instability, but Mirai explains he has learned to control it. Taman announces that Myoiga will begin their assault on Kukuri to claim her stone shard. As shrine attendant witnesses a giant ship emerge from the ground into the sky, carrying the Myoiga Tsukumogami, before Mirai uses his abilities to make the ship invisible. Kukuri is contacted about the invading forces and informs Kiriha and Kazuya Kagami. Kazuya, Kiriha, Kukuri, Sono Sumeraji, and Kotetsu head to the Hikuzan shrine, awaiting the enemy's arrival. Tagiri Kaneyama arrives with Omoikane Yagokoro, who introduces himself to Kazuya. Kukuri tells Kokyu to remain in bed to heal, but Kokyu refuses. Kukuri thanks everyone for supporting her and thinks she may need to use her last resort. Meanwhile, Azami observes Kamioka from the outskirts of the town's barrier. Before arriving there, Azami spoke with Murahi and the Myoiga members, telling them not to harm Kamioka's exorcist, Kazuya. Miorahi and Taman both state fighting him would be difficult to avoid. Azami grows angry and begins to curse before Akido calms her down, stating he will deal with Kazuya and Kiriha. Azami tells them she will not join the battle as she cannot enter Kamioka. As Myoiga approaches Kamioka, Miorahi gives a speech reminding them of what they must do. They are suddenly caught in a mesh of fire, dispelling their invisibility. A projection of Honoka reveals herself and warns them to retreat. Miorahi signals to Mimane to take action. The Myoiga Tsukumogami battle with Honoka's projection until she destroys the ship, only for it to be revealed to be an illusion. Honoka realizes the ship is a decoy, and their forces have already split apart to reach Kamioka. Before Honoka can lead to find their main forces, Yasuki warns her of the disruptions in the curse their battle just caused, and that they will hunt down the region's defenses if she leaves. Mirahi's group reaches the Hakusen Shrine and faces off against Kukuri and her group, exchanging introductions before he and Kukuri clash. Kukuri and Mirahi clash one-on-one, with Kazuya offering to help, which Kukuri rejects. As Kukuri struggles, she releases the barrier she created around Kanioka to return to her full power. With her full power, Kukuri easily overpowers Mirahi. As he struggles to get up, Chikage calls out to Mirahi, but he tells his forces to stay back. Kazuya tells Mirahi to stop, stating they can find good owners for all of them, but Mirahi expresses his doubts. As Mirahi goes in for a final attack, Azami suddenly kills him, impaling him through the back and taking his stone shard. The two Azami reveal themselves as Kukuri realizes they have been waiting for this moment. Azami gives the stone shard to Kanaka Kagami's body, and Kazuya recognizes Kanaka as his mother. Arumi and Akito watch from behind the bushes, shocked at the turn of events. Before entering battle, Mirahi told the others he would fight one-on-one with Kukuri to decrease casualties. Mirahi confirmed with Arumi that his decision had an acceptable outcome, telling them only to interfere if they foresee something bad happening. Akito is frustrated that they could not predict Azami betraying them despite using Arumi. As Honoka battles the Mayoiga forces, their ship suddenly reveals itself. Yasuki calls out to Mifune, who tells him that Mirahi's power has vanished, and he can no longer maintain the ship. The ship collapses and dozens of Tsukumogami revert to their original forms as they fall. Shin catches Taman but tells him he does not have enough power to catch everyone. Honoka catches the falling Tsukumogami and Taman questions why she would help them. Honoka tells them the fight has already ended and Mirahi has died. She tells them to give up or risk more casualties, offering to use her power to keep them alive. Taman reluctantly accepts, and the remaining Myogia forces surrender. Kanaka is revived with Mirahi's stone shard, quickly clothing herself in Azami's obi as she awakens. Kanaka thanks the two Azimuths before greeting Kukuri and her old friends. Kiriha is shocked that Kanaka is still alive after she believes she killed her. Kukuri tells them there is no time for a full explanation, simply telling Kazuya that the two Azimuths are Amasori he created, which have possessed Kanaka. Kazuya begins to have visions of his past when Kanaka is killed. Kazuya asks how they can save his mother, but Kukuri tells him she is already dead and the Amasogi's goal is to kill him. Kukuri tells Kazuya he must be the one to destroy them, otherwise not only would he incur a curse backlash strong enough to kill him, but the resulting backlash would decimate the entire region. Kanaka waits for Kukuri to finish her explanation, stating she looks forward to fighting Kazuya. The forces of Mayoiga and Kanioka witness Kanaka Kagami's resurrection. Kanaka prepares to battle Kazuya, Kukuri, and the others but is interrupted by Chikage and the remaining Mayoiga Tsukumogami. They attack Kanaka but are defeated in an instant. Kazuya, Kukuri, and Kiriha are frightened by Kanaka's power, and Kiriha tells Kazuya he should flee. Akito and Arumi are also shocked by Kanaka's power, failing to find any openings in her defenses even with Arumi's divination. Kiriha clings to Kazuya, telling him to flee, but Kukuri states they cannot. Kukuri tells Kazuya that she and the others will weaken Kanaka for him to finish off. Kanaka gets bored of waiting and tells them to come over and fight. Kukuri expresses her regrets and guilt over what happened to Kanaka, to which Kanaka tells Kukuri to undo the seal she put on Kazuya's memories to make up for it. Kukuri refuses, stating Kazuya will only land the killing blow and she will have to fight the rest of them. Hagure Kaneyama attacks Kanaka from behind as they speak, but Kanaka blocks it. Omoikane Yagakoro attacks Kanaka with lighting during the two clashes, but Kanaka can avoid most of the damage. Suno Sumiraji joins the fray and uses Ascension after Kanaka avoids her initial attack. Kukuri attacks Kanaka with Suzuro Mizuchi, which she attempts to block with a water weave, but Suno's final attack cuts it before Ascension wears off. Kanaka is caught in a three-way attack by Kukuri, Taguri, and Omoikane, incapacitating her. As Kukuri calls over to Kazuya to finish her, Azami appears and ambushes the three gods. Though Kukuri avoids the attack, Taguri and Omoikane are heavily wounded. Before they can deliver another attack, the two are ambushed again by the second Azami. Kukuri attacks the two Azami, but they are saved by Kanaka and rejoin her. Kukuri and Kanaka battle at full power. Kanaka tells Kukuri that after her initial defeat by Kukuri, one Azami stayed in Kamioka, observing Kazuya's battles, which she could also watch. Kanaka uses Ascension to kill Kukuri and take her stone shard. After seeing Kukuri die, Kokuyo flies at Kanaka in a rage, but is taken out with no effort. Kanaka then turns her attention to Kazuya and Kiriha. Kiriha thinks back to when Kazuya was a baby and when she had promised Kanaka that she would protect Kazuya should anything ever happen to her. Kiriha reaffirms to Kazuya that the Kanaka before them is just an Amasoji he created, which he needs to defeat. Kazuya uses Ascensions and clashes against Kanaka, but is overpowered. Kanaka expresses her disappointment and goes in for the killing blow. Kiriha uses herself as a shield to save Kazuya, but is killed in the process. Kazuya screams as he frantically tries to gather Kiriha's remains. Before Kanaka can kill Kazuya, he is saved by Kasumi, who kicks Kanaka back. Kasumi releases her Tsugumomo Sawari and tells Kazuya they will buy him 3 years to get strong enough to defeat Kanaka. The two rush to face Kanaka before Kazuya begins losing consciousness, and a large pillar of light bursts from the Hakuzen shrine. Kazuya awakes in his room, calling out the others, but no one answers. His father calls him to the living room, where he, Bakura, and Aoi Oriobana await. Aoi introduces herself and explains what happened after he lost consciousness. When Aoi and her team arrived at the Hakuzen shrine, they found a large black dome in the center. Aoi inspected the dome while her exorcists tended to the wounded and apprehended any Mayoiga Tsukumogami. There, Aoi found a projection of Sawari, which left a message explaining they had trapped Kanaka within a time-stopping barrier for 3 years to buy time. Aoi tells Kazuya the battle occurred 3 days ago, telling him the fates of the combatants on their side. Kazuya asks about Kukuri, to which Aoi informs him has passed away. Kazuya asks about Kiriha, and Kazuaki shows him her collected remains, leaving Kazuya speechless. Kazuya rests in bed, clutching the box of Kiriha's remains while unable to sleep. Aoi tells Kazuya that they have no other option to deal with Kanaka other than Kazuya himself killing her. She tells Kazuya he is to train at Suzura Temple, telling him he has no choice in the matter, but still wishes he would choose to do so willingly. Aoi asks Kazuya what he will do, but he does not respond. Sometime after Aoi and Bakura leave his room, he thinks about Kiriha, and Kukuri begins to cry. Kazuya washes his face and prepares to leave. Aoi expresses her surprise to Bakura that Kazuya regained his resolve so quickly. Before leaving, Kazuya speaks with his father. Kazuaki admits he, like the others, knew what was going on, but Kazuya thanked the others for protecting him for so long, stating it was his turn to repay them. Before Kazuya leaves, Kazuaki asks Kazuya to take care of Kanaka, and Kazuya accepts. Bakura tells Aoi that she knew Kazuya would regain his resolve because she knows him well from his dreams. Kazuya meets with Aoi and Bakura at the door, and the three prepare to leave.